Maverick News presents The Rick Walker Show. Defrag your mind.
Good evening, Maverick family. Welcome back to the Maverick News Channel. Good evening, everyone, all the new viewers, wherever you're coming in from. Thank you for spending time here with us tonight, for choosing this channel and this program and this family. We do have a great community here of great people, freedom-oriented. I think most everybody here is dedicated to the ideals, at least, of freedom of media, free speech, freedom in general. Unless you're here because you hate me, and there are some people out there who do send me hate mail. And Rhonda Jubinville, a freedom fighter, received something in that vein tonight as she attended her local council meeting in my hometown. Rhonda is the focus tonight of a story that is local to me, but international in scope. It is a story that you are going to want to stick around to watch unfold in real time tonight. It is the great flag fight. Yes, Rhonda tabled a motion at our local council some weeks ago calling for an end to the raising of flags for all kinds of different groups, special interest groups, as some would describe them, outside of government buildings here in my hometown of Chatham, Kent, Ontario. Why? Because some groups were being approved and some groups were being denied. It was a way for the municipality, for government here, to show support for various groups. And of course, we've seen flags like the Pride flag erected outside municipal buildings, outside City Hall, essentially, here in this town. We've seen many other charities and community groups have their flags raised, but some other groups have been ignored or denied. The process is such that I think it's, as far as I understand it, it's up to the mayor. It doesn't really go through council. There's no democratic process. There's no method of saying this group is approved, this group is denied, other than the mayor just saying, yeah, okay, we'll put the flag up, and then they have a flag raising ceremony, and the flag flies for a period of time. I believe it's a month. Might be a week. I can't recall. Doesn't matter. It's been a long time since I've been down there for a flag raising. In any event, tonight they're going to debate her motion, which calls for an end to that. She wants and is calling for only government flags, the Canadian flag, provincial flags, municipal flag, to be flown outside these buildings. And as you know, right now, the fighting between various political groups over especially LGBTQS plus rights and issues and drag queen story time, all of these issues are front and center right now in the news media. It has become the issue on the front line of battle across Canada and the US, frankly. And that issue has come home to roost right here tonight, because I think that even though the Pride flag is not really named specifically, and there's no mention of the flags or the groups that were denied, which is really where all of this started, not so much about what was being raised in front of the municipal buildings, it's about what wasn't being allowed to be raised. Because Rhonda never called for any flags to be banned. She just wants equal treatment and says that if some groups are approved, then pretty much all groups have to be approved. And if you can't approve all the groups, then you shouldn't approve any, because it just opens the door to a lot of controversy and hurt feelings and inequality really. So that's really where it stands. She's just calling for an end to the raising of flags outside municipal buildings that cater to specific special interest groups. Government flags only, put an end to the practice. These charities, other groups can exercise their right to uh, solicit support from the public in other venues, other places, but not outside municipal buildings. So that will be discussed a little further again tonight. I'll just bring up a picture here. We've got the feed coming in from the council chambers this evening, where this issue will be voted on. And it is item 21 on tonight's agenda, so we will be watching very closely. But man, I'm going to show you something. The meeting is ongoing right now. They're dealing with other issues. Something was left on Rhonda's desk. Rhonda Jubinville, the counselor who tabled this motion that we're going to be dealing with regarding the flags. She's been receiving a lot of hate mail, hate email. Something bizarre was sitting on her desk. You know, I think Rhonda is a person of faith. And this has to be disturbing for her. And this floored me. This is posted on her Facebook page tonight. This was left on her desk. It says, I sat down in my council chair in chambers, and this is what I received. Sigh. Oh, by the way, get behind me, Satan, she says. She is a trooper. She is a freedom fighter, to be sure. She's a champion, and she's not afraid. So this is a letter that was sent to Rhonda, in her name. And get a load of this. And this is why it doesn't matter where you're watching from tonight. It doesn't matter if you're in Canada, the United States, England, Australia, Russia. Doesn't matter if you're at the South Pole. Someone made a donation to the Satanic Temple in Rhonda's name, and then had this thank you package emailed directly to her, thanking her for the donation in her name. So this card that came as part of the package says, Dear Rhonda, we are writing to express our sincerest appreciation for the donation that was made in your name to the Satanic Temple. Your unwavering commitment to protecting our religious freedoms has inspired one of your constituents to make a contribution to our cause. The dedication you have shown to fighting for the rights of TST members to practice our religion has helped to ensure that the Samuel Alito's Mom's Satanic Abortion Clinic will continue providing essential support to those performing our satanic abortion ritual. On behalf of the Satanic Temple and our community, we would like to express our heartfelt gratitude for being such a source of inspiration to our donors. And then it says, and I don't even want to say the words, Hail, you know who, from the Satanic Temple. And then on this part of the card, it says you received this card because someone donated to the Satanic Temple in your name. To learn more about the campaigns the donation you inspired will support, visit thesatanictemple.com. Yes, this really happened. We are living in a time where we're witnessing another rise in paganism. No doubt about it. And the fact that they're running an abortion clinic associated with the Satanic Temple tells me that for some people, abortions have become something of a ritual. sacrificing of children. Of this I am sure. And it is disturbing. That because Rhonda is saying she wants everyone treated the same. No special treatment. Everyone's treated the same. And if you can't accommodate everyone with a flag raising, then just say that we're not going to do it because we can't be fair to everyone. So the fairest thing to do is say, go promote yourselves, but do it someplace else. We can't accommodate all of the groups here because we just don't have enough weeks or months in the year to get it done. And I guess you could say that some people have been injecting too much politics into politics. The politicization of politics at the municipal level has been taken to an extreme, to a point where the polarization is so great that it is no longer palatable, no longer in the best public interest to continue the practice of raising these flags, which is unfortunate because it does help raise awareness for some very good community groups. But how do you justify, and this is me editorializing, how do you justify saying yes to one group and either ignoring or saying no outright to another? The Satanic Temple has gone through that same issue where they have wanted to have community events, and they've asked for, in the communities they are in, for municipal government support or recognition. And they've run up against opposition the other way around. So this is a very serious, it's a real ongoing issue, right? And this is what we're facing here. I think Rhonda's motion is quite reasonable. I predict that her motion will be defeated and the practice of raising these flags will continue in a discriminatory fashion. We will see how the discussion goes tonight. Boy, she put it on the line just with this one issue. She ran previously for the New Blue Party of Ontario provincially in the last Ontario provincial election here in Canada. And she did not succeed there, but she tried again. And she got herself elected to local council, and she has been making a difference there, proving that all politics essentially comes down to local anyway. And she's having a serious impact there. She, early in her term on council, managed to convince enough councillors to vote with her on another motion that put an end to vaccine mandates at the municipal level. So one person can make a huge difference. One person on municipal council can make that kind of difference. And she's forging ahead here again tonight with this. What happens here may set things in motion in other communities, not just in Canada, but even in the US. That's the way these things kind of go. You start to get a wave of activity, right? As soon as you get success on one front, it can have a cascading effect, a domino effect. Watch closely tonight, folks. We're going to be watching this very closely. So we're on item 13 already. Watching very closely, monitoring that. We're also going to talk tonight about Tucker Carlson getting the hook off Fox News. Shocking to some, surprising to me. Didn't really shock me, though. When I was working in television, within the first week of me sitting down at my desk in the newsroom as a cub reporter, I remember one of the veteran photogs, videographer, came over and sat down beside me, and We were having a chat, and he said something that always stuck with me. He said, always remember, it's just a matter of time. You never know when it's going to come, but somebody someday is going to come along and tap you on the shoulder and say, your time here is up. And it's true. All good things come to an end. I remember there was a guy, he worked in the sports department. He was a sportscaster. I won't give you his name, but he was a really nice guy. I don't want to give you his name because I'm going to tell you something that maybe is a little bit embarrassing. Shouldn't be. It's just that he was getting older, right? And at that time, to show you how old I am now, we were transitioning from typewriters. We had IBM Selectric 2 typewriters in the newsroom. But the computers were coming in. And they had just installed this new computer system. Everything was integrated. And a lot of people were having trouble. The old guard, the veteran reporters, they were having difficulty, and he was one of them. Very popular on air, great guy, good broadcaster, veteran reporter, but spent most of his years covering sports and was known for that. But he just couldn't figure out how to save files. And, you have to think back to those days. Everything with computers was new. I mean, we're talking like 586 computers and, the old clunky, huge monitors, CRT monitors. He just struggled and struggled. He was such a great guy. He used to go to the hospitals to visit sick kids, but never wanted anybody to know. But he'd go up to the hospitals and people would recognize him because he was a local personality, a celebrity, right? He'd been on the air for years and years and years. Very popular. Great guy. Could not adapt to the computers. I even tried to help him, So here's the young, fresh start kid, wet behind the ears, greener than green, doesn't know anything, but I did know how to save the files on the computer. I could figure that stuff out. But he struggled. And I even sat down and tried to help him. But nobody could save him. Nobody could save him. It was just, you could see it. It was just a matter of time. And then, sure enough, somebody one day came along and just tapped him on the shoulder. And his career came to an end. So much of that I witnessed through my career because something somebody else said to me. Actually, you know who it was? It wasn't even somebody who said it to me. It was during a seminar, a media seminar that I attended with a consulting agency. It was through CTV that they organized this thing, but they had a guy there. He wasn't actually there. It was part of a video presentation. His name was Bob Dotson. Worked for NBC News. And they brought this excellent presentation from Bob Dotson. And he said that it was really about surviving in the media business, longevity. It's just like, it's not about being number one. It's not about being at the top. It's not about having the best ratings all the time. It's about surviving For those who really want to practice the craft over time, it's just about hanging in there, getting through it. You're only as good as your last story. You make a mistake, you pick yourself up, you carry on, you keep on going, you try to survive, you adapt, and you carry on. I took that to heart. Here I am, how many decades later, so many of my friends got the tap on the shoulder, and I got the tap on the shoulder too. But I carried on independently. I found a way to survive. I always found a way to survive. In the media business. And for me, it's in my blood. It's just about carrying on. Today, Tucker Carlson got the tap on the shoulder. He's at a different level than me. He's just so huge. And there have been so many before him who have, had somebody tap them on the shoulder and say, "Time to go, pal." So many. Bill O'Reilly. There's another one. In the no spin zone. But he's survived. He's still out there doing his thing. Not as big because he doesn't have the platform. But he's still out there and he's still pretty big. Still has a following. Joe Rogan, he's out there independent. And people are predicting that Tucker Carlson will not only survive, but prosper and maybe even be bigger. I don't know. It's really difficult to compete against the mainstream media. I include Fox News in the mainstream media. Definitely. When you don't have those television stations, all those networks, all those affiliates pumping out the broadcast signal, when you're not on the cable systems, when you're not on Roku and just picked up from satellite all around the world, it's pretty difficult. But there are a lot of other alternatives. I mean, he can get syndicated. He can really prosper online. There's, he'll make a good living. No question about that. Will he be as big as he has been? I don't know. See, Dan Bongino. He's left Fox News as well. Big change is afoot there. The network is changing. And this all happening in the wake of that Dominion voting machines settlement between Fox News and Dominion. $800 million. $800 million. And Tucker was involved in the reporting of all that stuff. So I am pretty sure that it had something to do with that. At least it had to be a factor to some degree. We're still in deputations here in the council meeting where we're following the great flag fight. Stay with me. We're going to take a brief break here, and I will be right back.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching. Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
So there's question period. We're going to go to question period shortly in Parliament here in Canada because we continue to follow the long ongoing story of the federal workers' strike here. In addition to that, Bill C-11, that's the censorship bill here in Canada. It is on the verge of becoming law. And conservatives in the Senate, where it has to get its final approval before receiving royal assent so it becomes law, are upset because the government has debate cutoff plans. So as the Senate prepares to pass Bill C-11 after making history with the extent of its legislative study, the conservatives are upset with the government because they are limiting the hours left to debate the legislation. So Bill C-11 is known as the Online Streaming Act. The leader of the opposition Senate, Don Piet, is calling this one last censorship measure. And he says this is a slap in the face to Canadians who have concerns that the censorship bill is not being properly reviewed and given, and the senators are not really being given enough time to try to improve it, amend it. Bill C-11 proposes the first serious updates to Canada's Broadcasting Act since 1991. And that act came into effect before the digital era. The Broadcasting Act was aimed at the time at ensuring the Canadian content was protected and promoted on Canadian television and radio stations. And this new bill, Bill C-11, is also focused on that. However, there are also provisions in it that give social media companies like Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, all of them, marching orders essentially to prioritize particular kinds of Canadian content. And I think that includes and is focused on mainstream media news outlets to give them preferential treatment in the search engine algorithms, essentially moving those to the top of the search engine results and pushing independent, smaller platforms like this one down, suppressing us. That is a form of censorship, a way of them promoting what they want you to see and hiding what they don't want you to see. So this also focuses on things like Canadian content for music, film, video production, and things of that nature. But it's the algorithm, the search engine results, the way that information is handled and promoted online or suppressed online that is the real concern here. So I can tell you that social media platforms are already doing it. They've been doing it for a while. It's quite clear that they are attacking platforms like this, Google, YouTube in particular, pushing channels like this down, making it difficult to find us in the search engine results. And if you search for any particular news story of the day, you're going to get all the mainstream media on the first page, depending on the wording that you type in. I've been giving that a lot of thought. I'm trying to come up with some strategies to sort of circumvent that and the way that we set up our broadcasts and online content, thinking in terms of different kinds of keywords to use for the hashtags and in the body of the descriptions. I'm not sure if I will ever come up with success. YouTube never actually completely reveals the secrets of its search engine algorithms. They never actually ever reveal that to the public in full. They give you some best practices to follow, but they never actually tell anybody in the public realm exactly how it all works. And they change it a lot. It's never constant. I'm always skeptical of companies that say, we have the secret formula for search engine rankings. All you can really do is just follow the best practices when you're doing search engine optimization for websites and social media platforms and for social media content like live stream videos like this. And then you cross your fingers and hope that by following the best practices of Google that they actually give you good rankings. Unfortunately, with Bill C-11 in Canada and similar laws, maybe coming on stream in other countries, including the US, it won't matter if you're independent. How closely you follow those guidelines, they're always going to give a higher authority score to the mainstream media than they give to an independent platform. That's going to be the reality moving forward. So it's almost, I think, incumbent upon independents to sort of not set up a parallel system, but maybe a parallel online community within the community using other keywords aside from news, or using specific keywords where people can go and find it. I think people will come up with creative solutions to get around this legislation, but it's going to take some time. And I think this sets overall a dangerous precedent. I don't like it. Very worried about it. Hang on a second. Here we go.
Visible and powerful means of celebrating the many groups that contribute to our wonderful region. Thank you.
So he's talking in favor of keeping the flag policy.
Next up, we have Janet Johnston, followed by Nancy Kay, and then Greg Simpson.
Mayor Caniff, members of council, and guests. I am speaking to you as chair of the Affirming Committee of St. Paul's Victoria Avenue United Church. In 2022, two existing United Churches amalgamated, and the resulting congregation is currently the only designated affirming congregation in Chatham, Kent. To be affirming means to be explicitly, intentionally, and publicly welcoming of everyone. All churches say all are welcome, but clearly saying that 2S LGBTQIA+ folks are a part of and embraced in every part of our church life is essential. Society has come a long way, but churches have inherited centuries of transphobic and homophobic oppression carried out in the name of God and the Bible. Organizations must be very clear when saying they are welcoming. I feel the same is true of our community. Celebrating diversity and inclusiveness by explicitly naming organizations and groups gives people a chance to see what our community is all about. Honoring groups that commemorate our history and have shaped our culture give us a time to reflect and feel gratefulness. Naming groups who have raised money to help people with special needs in our community encourages people to keep giving and honors those who work so hard to make this happen. Raising flags in our municipality show the community who we are, a loving, diverse, and inclusive community. Other cities have faced challenges with flag raising requests and have created clear policies to guide these decisions. Flags must represent or reflect the values of our municipality. A link to the City of Ottawa and the City of Toronto's flag raising policies can easily be found online. Thank you for allowing me to share these thoughts on behalf of St. Paul's Victoria Avenue United Church.
Next up, we have Nancy Kay and then Greg Simpson.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and councilors. My name is Nancy Kay. Please consider this deputation, my deputation, documenting my disagreement with the motion moved by Councillor Jubenville, re the cessation of all flag raisings outside of federal, provincial, and municipal flags across the municipality. As you know, this proposal serves to end all flag raisings across the municipality and promote the public awareness campaigns and other community organizations. This response to the controversy is just not the way to go. The CK Council is entertaining this motion of no more flags for Black History Month, Truth and Reconciliation Week, Black Lives Matter, Terry Fox Lives Here, Transgender Awareness, the Mental Health Network, the Kiwanis Music Festival, Veterans Week, Pride Week, flags to raise awareness for ending gender-based violence across Ontario, to celebrate and honor the work of the VON. I believe Community Living is looking to raise a flag this week. It raises grave concerns for me. Read the content of your debate this evening. I'm saddened that you're forced to debate a motion that is so ill-founded and contrary to the values of inclusion, equity, and justice. And I encourage you to maintain open minds and open hearts as you seek to preserve a safe and welcoming space for all during your discussions. As you've heard, rather than banning flag raising, some cities have written clear policies to address the request to raise a flag. A well-considered approach such as this is what Chatham-Kent needs. And I encourage you this evening to consider that. A caring community does not silence the celebration of days of commemoration and awareness. A caring community seizes every opportunity to promote equity, inclusion, and diversity. And if I may steal from my favorite Chatham-Kent flag, hate has no home here.
So next up is Greg Simpson. He did record a video just in case he wasn't able to make it tonight. So is Mr. Simpson here in the audience? Okay, I will start his video. And next to speak is going to be Marianne Wilson.
Identity politics.
Good evening to the members of the Chatham-Kent Municipal Council. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak to you this evening. My name is Greg Simpson. I'm the minister at St. Andrew's United Church in downtown Chatham. And I want to speak to the motion which is suggesting we limit all of the flags that get raised at municipal centers in our municipality. Now, as a person who works very closely with underrepresented communities in our area, I understand how important it is for people who don't see themselves represented in some of the structures of power to be able to see that the municipality and other organizations are visibly supportive of those groups. I would like to acknowledge and support the fact that there certainly needs to be a comprehensive and transparent policy around flag raising so that we can address this issue head on. And I want to thank Council for this opportunity to have conversation about this particular issue. But the motion as it's currently worded, I think will actually work against its stated goals of building inclusion and reducing controversy. See, raising the flag of a community of people who are in our community but don't show up in all of the spaces and places and structures of power is a really beautiful visual representation of how we, the municipality, the community at large, support those groups. In times when they are feeling like they are no longer heard, this is an active step that we can take to say, you belong here. So if we go ahead with a motion that eliminates those flags altogether, I think what we're going to do is build exclusivity into our municipal policies. And I don't think that is the community that we want to create. I fear that it would undermine our relationships with these important groups of our community and make them feel excluded or diminished, or that their voices are no longer being heard and don't matter. I suggest that we consider deeply how the motion as it stands would impact all of the communities in our area. The LGBT community, our Indigenous friends, the Black community, special interest groups and organizations who have had an opportunity to see that they matter in the eyes of the municipality by looking up and seeing their flags flying over communities. What message will we be sending to those particular groups by saying your flag is no longer welcome here? I am encouraged to know that communities in our surrounding area, other municipalities, have looked at this issue in the past, and some of them have some comprehensive, fair, and transparent policies that address this particular issue. Perhaps the Chatham-Kent municipality can look to some of our friends and neighbors, learn from their wisdom, work with our local groups and stakeholders, and create a healthy, transparent, and uplifting, inclusive policy around flag raising for our community. So, councillors, I invite you to turn down the motion as it is currently written and instead work towards a deeper conversation about the flags and the other ways that we can support underrepresented groups in our community. Thank you so much for listening to me this evening, and thank you for this opportunity for us to have this very important conversation. I look forward to the ongoing development of this discussion.
Mayor Kenneth, councillors, guests in attendance today. My name is Marianne Wilson, and I represent the Chatham-Kent Gay Pride Association. We disagree with Councillor Jubenville's motion regarding flag raisings. The Rainbow Pride flag was first raised in the municipality of Chatham-Kent in the year 2000. In 2018, the transgender pride flag was raised, the awareness flag. Pride flags are a signal of support, safety, and hope for the 2S LGBTQIA+ community worldwide. And when the municipality raises these flags, it shows collective concern for the dignity of the marginalized. Prohibiting flag raising insults the memories of those we've lost to homophobia and transphobia and indicates an indifference to continued violence and oppression. CK Pride emphasizes that inclusivity, representation, and freedom of expression must include justice. Justice asks for consideration of the harms of including groups that use speech and symbols that run contrary to the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Policies that include all groups' flags would give a platform for those who would advocate or promote hate. We encourage the municipality to develop a flag raising policy that includes an evaluation based on diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice. Thank you for hearing our voices.
Next up, we have Wanda Winfield and then Jane Wright.
Good evening. My name is Wanda Winfield, and I'm a resident of Chatham-Kent, currently living in Tupperville in North Kent. I am speaking about the flag issue, asking the council to reconsider the policy, and I have a prepared deputation here. I am writing about the issue of raising flags at the municipal offices. I believe that the policy of the City of Ottawa is an appropriate model. To quote, the revised flag protocol will require the group making the request to have a mandate program or activity that is directly connected to the municipality or that aligns with days of awareness, celebration, importance, commemoration, or promotion that are recognized by the Ontario and/or federal government or a ministry or department thereof. I have attended many flag raisings within Chatham-Kent, and there are many people of diverse backgrounds who attend these raisings, including families and children. Allow me to give you, to have this opportunity to give you some history on the background of the rainbow flag. The use of the flag dates back to 1978 in California, It represents LGBTQ plus community, which is made of all backgrounds, colors, religions, and ages. It doesn't make any political statement, although many people have opinions on it. It does not represent any political party. In the 80s, it was our standard under which we marched, celebrated, and grieved. It covered the caskets of many people during the AIDS crisis. It is not a banner, which conveys a particular message and represents specific people. Our flag has been amended to include trans people and racialized people. The rainbow flag is for everyone who values justice and freedom. I hope this information helps. Thank you.
Next up, we have Jane Wright, and then our last person speaking will be Maureen Geddes.
Hello, can you hear me? Am I okay? I can't see with these on very well, far away. I'm appreciating, my name is Jane Wright, as you just heard. You can hear me, right? No? Oh, can you hear me? Oh, well, that's not my fault. Can you hear me now? Okay, I'll lean into it. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for allowing some presentations tonight, and I do appreciate hearing all the views. I really do. I am Jane Wright, a longtime resident of Chatham, Kent. Full disclosure, I am currently a board member of Right to Life Kent / Life in Motion, the group whose flag request was not responded to by the Mayor's office. Right to Life Kent has been operating here for over 45 years and has thousands of local supporters. Councillor Jubenville is not a member. I can safely say that she is a supporter. Please note, I am not representing Right to Life Kent. I am only speaking for myself. The board is unaware of this deputation. Also, please be aware that I have connections with and love for many of the groups that currently, let me say that one again. Please be aware that I have connections with and I love people in many of the groups that currently fly flags on municipal properties. I support the right of every group of good intent to fly their flag. However, because the current flag decision-making is arbitrary and the sole responsibility of the mayor's office, I support Councillor Jubenville's motion. Councillor Jubenville is correct that the three government flags do represent every citizen. We are blessed and have much to celebrate in Chatham, Kent. Should her motion be defeated and a flag policy be established, it might not be an improvement. Many taxpayer dollars would be spent reviewing each application, and decisions could still be arbitrary if someone has an axe to grind against a group. With Councillor Jubenville's motion, there is no expense, no dissension, and no discrimination. All citizens are represented by the three government flags. This seems simplest and fairest. Her motion is not against any particular group. As she stated on CTV News and Post Media, she would support a pro-choice group's request to fly a flag if there was one. My understanding of what prompted Councillor Jubenville's motion was the fact that Right to Life Kent made a flag request to the mayor's office and councillors for the month of May and did not receive a reply. Anyone who knows Councillor Jubenville knows she's a take action person. She assumed support would be given in the light that that we have many flag raisings in Chatham, Kent. When no reply was forthcoming at all, she formulated her current motion in the effort of fairness for community groups in Chatham, Kent. In one way, she should be thanked for trying to right what she thought was a slight to a community group. She meant nothing against any other group as stated and has made that very clear. I am not here tonight to complain that a group I'm involved with had its flag request ignored. It would have been nice to have municipal support and recognition, but it does not affect our membership and our reason for being at all. I am here to see the value because I see the value of Councillor Jubenville's motion for the municipality, and I support it for the reasons given until something more inclusive comes along. Beyond that, I am aghast that Councillor Jubenville has been personally slammed, insulted, and even wished dead by some citizens of Chatham-Kent. Eek, I'm running out of time. This is the most shocking and upsetting aspect of her flag motion to me. One can state their case without stooping to nastiness. Councillors don't deserve that, and no one does. This whole dust-up has highlighted a few areas of municipal governments that might need improving. If it remains the mayor's office as the sole decision maker, that office needs to reply to all groups that make a flag request as a common courtesy. Training for new councillors should include a flag protocol so no new councillor is blindsided. Beyond that, citizens need to be kind, whatever their views. Wasn't that supposed to be the great lesson of the pandemic? Let alone the golden rule that dates back thousands of years. Let's be known in Chatham-Kent for being kind. Oops, can I have one more paragraph? Yes? I believe this temporary quandary will have a positive outcome in Chatham-Kent. It may just take time. In the off chance there's a stalemate, here's the thought. Perhaps Councillor Jubenville's motion could be a ballot question at our next municipal election. The residents of Chatham-Kent could have their say, and it might increase voter turnout, which was a dismal 30.56% last election. Thank you for your time, your attention, and your consideration.
We're going to move on to our next deputation from
Sorry,
Maureen Geddes.
Sorry, I'd like to interject just for a second here. I normally don't interject during deputations, but Ms. Wright really hit the nail on the head on one particular issue I want to highlight. And I just want to read pretty much verbatim what the one paragraph that she said. Beyond that, I'm aghast that Councillor Jubenville has been personally slammed, insulted, and even wished dead by some citizens of Chatham-Kent. This is the most shocking and upsetting aspect of her flag motion to me, to her. One can state their case without stooping to nastiness. Councillors do not deserve that. No one does. I want to emphasize that point as we debate here, whatever it is, we're debating ratios, raising flags, whatever it is we're debating, we're here as a society to make us better. So death threats or anything along that line is completely unacceptable. So I encourage everyone as we're debating these issues, whatever they are, whether they're here in council chambers, out in the streets, or online, please be respectful of people. You can get your points across without being nasty, without doing those things. So I encourage that as we move forward. Thank you.
Now we'll move on to our final deputation from Maureen Geddes.
Mayor and Council, thank you. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of Manjitima Indigenous Network, as we have been asked by several community partners to share our perspective about the flag raising motion that is being brought before you. Manjitima is an Ojibwe word meaning we come together to meet with each other. The Manjitima Indigenous Network is a group of Indigenous and non-Indigenous people in what we now call Chatham-Kent who have come together with the goal of learning, listening, and advancing pathways to justice for Indigenous peoples. We come from communities and organizations that are early on in our own learning and reconciliation journeys. In response to the request to comment, we offer as a metaphor the two-row wampum, or Guswenta. It is a visual representation of the coexistence of two peoples. The two parallel purple lines symbolize a separate but equal relationship between two nations in one canoe, one in a canoe and one in a ship, navigating the river, which is represented by the white between the rows of purple. The paths don't cross and neither is meant to interfere or steer the other. The three white rows represent trust, friendship, and peace, the basis of all our interactions. Extending this metaphor, flag raisings are a process that are part of the ship system. Because of that, it is not the place for Mangitama to have an opinion on the flag raising policy or practice. If we can offer one thought from our own experience of trust, friendship, and peace, is that they are realized for us when they are weaved into and lived out through our collective work together. We seek to embody our organization's purpose and live it through learning and action by each of us. As the municipality considers changing flag raising practices, it may be helpful, as it has been for us on such difficult subjects, to have dialogue with communities of interest to gather input, foster understanding, and reflect the nuances that go along with flag raisings. They hold different meanings and values for different people. We thank you for taking the time to look at the challenging decision of how to determine what is necessary, what is fair, and what is workable. We hope that our feedback may be received in the spirit of friendship with which it is offered. Miigwech, Mazagadats, Marcy, thank you.
Well, I move on to item 16. Oh, sorry, consent agenda.
Yep, we're now going to go to the consent agenda. The following items have been pulled for discussion. Item 16C, RFP award for supply and application of dust suppressants, pulled by Councillor Doyle and Councillor Sakachi. 16D, tender award for Kyle Drive South Extension.
Okay,
pulled
so
by
those
Councillor
people
Stoll.
spoke.
Item
They will come
17A,
back to
CK2
this
Power Young
issue.
People 2022 survey
It is
and
item
advisory group
21
update.
on the agenda. So I'll pull out of this. We're going to go to a brief break, and then we'll deal with some other news while we wait for them to get through these other items on the agenda so we can get to the meat of the matter and see what they decide.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, so I'm back, and you guys are Mavericks, every one of you. It's a community that we have here. It isn't just my show, and I just want to acknowledge that again, because this whole Tucker Carlson thing, hang on just a second here. Just
Now we'll
need to
move on
dip
to
in
tender
here.
awards, item 16.
16C.
They're voting on these
RFP
motions.
award for supply and
So I don't want to
application of
miss
dust
this because they're going to come down here and deal with these things
Councillor
pretty
Doyle
quickly.
and Councillor Scotch, can I get you to move this, please? I'm happy to move that, Mayor.
Seconded, Mayor Caniff.
Councillor Doyle, the floor is yours.
I guess my
Okay. Still dealing with other issues. I've got this stuff playing in my head while I'm trying to talk to you as well, which is kind of the point, part of the point that I'm making. Tucker Carlson is going to have his work cut out for him. When you need to get that out of my head for a second. When you watch Tucker Carlson's monologues, presentations, videos, his stuff is all scripted. He's reading off a prompter. If you aren't aware of that, it's true. You can see his eyes moving. It's clear he's reading off a prompter. He has a staff. I understand he's really been working from home since the pandemic. He had a studio set up there so that he could just work from home, but he still has a staff, or had a staff until today. And when you have to transition from that big league, big network work environment where you have all the support mechanisms in place, where you have meetings and then you assess the content that you have available to you, what stories you want to cover, an editorial staff, you have editorial meetings, you have writers who help write the material for you quite often. In fact, used to be union rules at the CBC that anchors weren't allowed to write their own news copy. Some of those rules were waived over the years to allow some of the bigger names in the business to do that work on their own, because they wanted to feel like they were actually practicing journalism and they weren't just a talking head. But often that's what you're getting in the mainstream media, especially at the network level. You're getting actors, presenters, not real journalists. Now, I wouldn't really put Tucker Carlson in that category. I think he is a real journalist, and you can see that he knows what he's talking about when he conducts his one-on-one interviews. Definitely at the top of his game. But to transition from that kind of environment to something online where you're more independent, if you don't have those supports in place, it can be difficult for some people to adapt. Let me just dip in here and see where we're at with the meeting. I've been able to survive because I've been lucky, because I've been able to develop skills over time in video production. I always firmly believed and still believe, and whenever I taught journalism, I tried to instill the idea that it is about survival and that you need to really ground yourself foundationally in the craft of storytelling if you want to be a journalist that's able to survive. The technology will always change, and you can always learn new technology as long as your brain is fresh enough to absorb information and learn new tricks along the way. You have to learn to adapt to the technology to survive, but just learning the technology is not enough. I saw so many of my friends have their careers ended early because of technological change along the way. From analog videotape to digital non-linear video editing, I saw so many guys who were employed as videographers or video editors lose their jobs because they couldn't figure out the new technology. Just like my friend in the sports department who couldn't figure out how to save basic Word files into the computer for his scripts. Cost him his job. He had to retire. Is Tucker Carlson in that category? I don't know. But it's a lot harder when you're on your own and you don't have anybody to help you, because you have to do it all yourself. Let me check in here. Not yet. So, it's going to be interesting to see. He's big enough that he should be able to hire some staff, but will he get the quality of people? Will it end up being the same? I don't know. My guess is he'll crush it. He'll end up with a huge following online. Don Lemon, he lost his gig today too. Some of this stuff's actually pretty funny, some of the stuff that's being posted online about these firings or disengagements. Here's Donald Trump on his Truth Social platform talking about Don Lemon. Donald Trump responds to Don Lemon's firing from CNN. The dumbest man on television, he says. And you notice I didn't even really talk about Don Lemon when I first started yakking about this tonight. And that's because Don Lemon is not going to have the following that Tucker Carlson has is if he tries to transition over to an independent existence on social media. Here's an actual article written about Trump's post on Truth Social. Donald Trump responds to Don Lemon's firing from CNN, the dumbest man on television. Note, this article may contain commentary reflecting the author's opinion. On Monday, Don Lemon announced that he had been fired from CNN after 17 years with the network. I was informed this morning by my agent I have been terminated by CNN, Lemon wrote on Twitter. I am stunned after 17 years at CNN. I would have thought that someone in management would have had the decency to tell me directly, the CNN host wrote. At no time was I ever given any indication that I would not be able to continue to do the work I have loved at the network, he continued. It is clear that there are some larger issues at play. With that said, I want to thank my colleagues, he continues, and the many teams I have worked with for an incredible run, he said, adding, they're the most talented journalists in the business, and I wish them all the best. Here's the actual post from Twitter. I am stunned after 17 years at CNN. I would have thought that someone in management would have had the decency to tell me directly. At no time was I ever given any indication that I would not be able to continue to do the work I have loved at the network. It is clear that there are some larger issues at play, and blah, 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 blah. And blah, blah, blah. And then Trump's response, the dumbest man on television. It's funny. I don't like to kick people when they're down, but just the responses, I do find them humorous. And that's so typically Donald Trump. Here is the dumbest man on television. Okay, so they're only up to item 16D on the agenda. Still playing the meeting in my earpiece so I can keep tabs on this for you as we move forward. Okay, so let's take another quick break. And then when we come back, we're going to go to question period because there was an exchange there, I believe, today regarding the federal workers' strike in Canada. We won't stick with that too long because I know our American viewers want more American news or international news. And we do have some of that coming up. I think if we are able to get through this other material. So yeah, we'll be coming back to that. But don't go away. We've got more ahead right after this.
Maverick News. The world is watching. Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, Trusted. Grounded in reality. Maverick News. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, we are back. And we're going to talk about Ron DeSantis in a moment. But before we get there, just want to come back to the Tucker Carlson thing for a moment. Here's a reaction from Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Where did it go? It's right over here. There it is. Let me show you this. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Fox fires Tucker Carlson 5 days after he crosses the red line by acknowledging that the TV networks pushed, and then I can't say the rest or we'll get banned on YouTube. For years, Tucker had the nation's biggest audience, averaging 3.5 million, 10 times the size of CNN. Fox just demonstrated the terrifying power of, and I can't tell you the rest because I'll get banned on YouTube. So there's that. We're also losing our feed from the council chambers tonight, but hopefully we get that reestablished. Everything has gone all haywire. Hang on. Let me see if rebooting that will, but it's not us. No, it's not. Okay, that's all right. What we will do, though, is go to question period here in Canada, where they're talking about the federal workers' strike tonight. And let me bring this up. Here we go. Pierre Poilievre, Conservative Party of Canada.
We are currently witnessing massive incompetence by this Prime Minister. The Prime Minister has spent $20 billion more on the public service while causing the biggest public service strike in over 40 years. As a result of that, 700 people didn't have heating for 3 days. The minister has told Canadians not to apply for passports, to not even bother trying to obtain a passport here in Canada. How much will Canadians have to pay to fix the strike that the Prime Minister caused? The Honourable President of the Treasury Board. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As you know, public servants offer essential services to Canadians, and the government appreciates their work. We have committed to reaching agreements which are fair and reasonable for Canadians. That's what we're doing right now. We will continue to do so until we reach an agreement that is fair and reasonable. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
To increase the cost of the bureaucracy by 50% or $20 billion a year, it would be another to have a strike. But to do both of those things at once takes a special, unique kind of incompetence that only this Prime Minister could pull off. But the consequences are that 700 soldiers have been without heat and warm water. Canadians are now told they're not even to apply for passports, let alone get one, meaning that they'll miss international weddings. Our veterans, our seniors, our small businesses, our taxpayers are all being ripped off. Now, how much are they going to have to pay to bring an end to the Prime Minister's cause strike?
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Mr. Speaker, public servants from the PSAC provide important services to Canadians, and the government values their work. We are committed to reaching agreements that are fair for employees and also reasonable to Canadians. There is a competitive deal on the table, but the PSAC continues to insist on demands that are unaffordable and would severely impact our ability to deliver services to Canadians. Now, Canadians can expect both parties to bargain in good faith and find compromise. That is what we are focusing on, Mr. Speaker. Merci.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
This Prime Minister is unaffordable. Maybe if we weren't spending $21 billion on consultants every year, he wouldn't have the biggest public service strike in modern memory. He expects us also to believe that he has no direct or indirect involvement with the Trudeau Foundation, even though its donors pay for his vacations. He chose two of its former directors to head up investigations into foreign interference. The Trudeau Foundation received Beijing-based donations, which his brother processed. Mr. Speaker, now we learn that the Trudeau Foundation is holding meetings in his office. Did he not know about that either?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
The meeting that took place was between public servants in a government building. It wasn't with the Prime Minister, but I can understand that the Leader of the Opposition, as usual, is looking to swing a wide stick and doesn't seem to care what he hits, Mr. Speaker. There is constant beret of attacks and mischaracterization of information. His interest, again and again, is to disrupt and be partisan rather than provide productive solutions to the issues that face this country right now.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
So let's get this straight. The Trudeau Foundation's donors paid for the Prime Minister's vacation, but he didn't know about that. The Trudeau Foundation supplied the two independent investigators to look into the interference by Beijing. He didn't know about that either. The Trudeau Foundation received donations from Beijing, organized and orchestrated by his brother, but he didn't know about that. And now we know there were meetings in the Prime Minister's office with his top officials and the Trudeau Foundation. Once again, are they really expecting Canadians to be dumb enough not to believe that he didn't know about that either?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, sometimes I stay up at night and I wonder how the Leader of the Opposition got to the position of recommending to people to opt out of inflation by recommending cryptocurrency as a solution. And now I understand why, Mr. Speaker. Listening.
I just want to wait till everybody's ready and we can get on with question period. The Honourable Government House Leader, please proceed.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's because if you listen to that convoluted mess that the Leader of the Opposition tossed out there that was completely nonsensical, and I'll just take one for a point. Yes, the Prime Minister, as I've said on many occasions, took a vacation with his family over Christmas and stayed at a friend's house. By the way, that friend had been his family friend his entire life. He had been at that residence when he was 1 year old. The mischaracterizations continue.
The Leader of the Opposition.
So the Prime Minister really wants Canadians to believe that he received payments for his vacation from donors to the Trudeau Foundation, but that he didn't know. He wants people to believe that the Trudeau Foundation received donations from Beijing, facilitated by his brother, but he didn't know, and wants people to believe that the two investigators into foreign interference are from the Trudeau Foundation. There was a meeting with the Trudeau Foundation in the Prime Minister's office with his top officials, and we're expected to believe that he didn't know. Mr. Speaker, does the Prime Minister take the Canadians for fools? Mr. Speaker, it's clear that the member across the way wants there to be a link between the Foundation and the Prime Minister, but there was no connection. No link, either direct or indirect, between the Foundation and the Prime Minister. That's been clear. There's been no connection for over 10 years. It's very clear. Unfortunately, though, the Leader of the Opposition is looking to create division and partisanship. He's not really looking for facts, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, we were wondering why China was so interested in getting close to the Trudeau Foundation, and we got the answer this morning, because in 2016, when China was signing a big check to the Trudeau Foundation, there was a meeting of the Trudeau Foundation at the Prime Minister's office with not one, not two, not three, but 5 deputy ministers. Yet the Prime Minister continues to insist that for 10 years he hasn't had any ties to the Foundation. But is he aware of what happens in his own office, or does he take Quebecers for fools? The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House. Mr. Speaker, there was an independent meeting with public servants, officials, and the foundation. The Prime Minister had no ties to that meeting, no information about it. The question is ridiculous. The implication is ridiculous. Neither China nor any other country has had an influence over our government or influenced any of our officials. Our officials are loyal to Canada. That's very clear, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker.
Okay, enough. We have been hearing about this for a while. It keeps going on and on and on. The Conservatives keeping the pressure on high on the Justin Trudeau vacation portfolio, the Chinese influence over the Canadian elections, all that, those issues. It's just, they're rehashing today just in an attempt to keep it in the news cycle, keep the pressure on, keep the heat on the PM, who is not responding here. He's not there right at the moment. So that's the end of that for now. Hang on. I'm going to re-queue a few things here. They're in a break in the council chambers. We'll be coming back at the appropriate time when discussions and voting, they're coming back now. I can hear them.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
Actually, there is some sort of a problem with the feed coming out of the council chambers. It's the video is breaking up. They're giving us the wrong feed now. Let me just go back here and see if I can reestablish something. Not looking good. The whole thing. Here we go. Let's see. Yeah, they're this is, yeah, the whole thing is breaking up. And it looks like the feed has been cut. Here, I'm going to show you what was happening. To show you. Hang on. Not looking good. Here, I'll show you. Something weird going on here. It's doing this. And then the feed got cut. I hope we get what we need out of there. We've been following this story, and I want to know. I want to know what's decided. Stay with me. I'm gonna dump out of this. We're gonna run a little break here again, so I can go to an alternative source, perhaps, and see if we can get something rocking and rolling here again. Stay with me. I'm not done yet.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
Okay, still working to see if I can get a feed coming out of there. Looks like I've got something. Hang on. Let's just dump right into it and see what we can get. Here we go.
What that looks like from a municipal perspective and from a community perspective. And I think those are things that we need to keep in mind if we want to keep growing in a way that's smart and that helps build a better community. So this very much, and great job on the presentation.
Councillor Story.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I also wanted to echo those compliments. Thank you, Victoria, for a great presentation. That's really useful information. Thanks to everyone in this group who's been spending your volunteer time, sharing your feedback, and to the co-chairs, Jason Brown and Megan Siddall. I really appreciate you taking the lead on this committee. I think it's really primarily an economic
I'm going to check the
development
agenda
tool
and see
that
how
we
far
can
along we
use
are
to
here.
help grow our economy in this critical demographic, which I have sadly aged out of now, but I really value that work that you're doing. A couple of quick questions. In terms of the communication piece, when I moved back to Chatham-Kent, I felt the same way, that there was not a lot of stuff to do for people our age. But as I got more familiar with moving back home and settling back in my community, I often found out that I just wasn't aware of the different opportunities that were available. Are you finding that? Is it also an awareness piece? Like how do we know what we don't know? Is there a place where we can find out?
I believe they're on item
Central hub of
17, so we're still a
information to find out
few
what is going on and what stuff there is.
few items away.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do believe that is a big part of it. Often.
So we'll pull out of that. Just move on to some other news of the day. So, a super PAC supporting former President Donald Trump has already spent over $6 million on TV ads that attack Ron DeSantis, the Florida governor. And DeSantis hasn't even declared his candidacy for the Republican nomination yet. So apparently, since April, the super PAC, Make America Great Again, Inc., has been spending $1.5 million approximately every week on the ad campaign. The expenditures are described in the PAC's disclosure filings to the Federal Election Commission as media placements opposing presidential candidate DeSantis. So there was one from last week that zeroed in on DeSantis's past record of supporting cuts to Social Security and Medicare during his time in Congress. We actually ran one of those ads for you about a week ago, and it was pretty brutal. You know, it's a very American thing. In Canada, you don't get the same level of aggressiveness in attack ads. Not usually, not in Canada. That seems to be changing, but in Canada, it's a kinder, gentler kind of politics generally, especially within the mainstream. Other ads aimed at DeSantis have focused on his alleged eating habits, and they make claims that say DeSantis is just not ready to be president. I don't know. He seems pretty competent on many fronts. We ran that pudding ad where it shows somebody eating pudding with the fingers. It's supposed to be DeSantis saying he gets his fingers into everything. It was kind of icky. So they are spending a lot, and these are polished ads, maybe a little overthought, if anything. That was the thing that sort of struck me about that pudding ad. Was a lot of symbolism in it, I guess, imagery. It was designed to sort of, for lack of a better word, stick in your brain, the pudding ad. And it did for a while. I think after if there's a lot of repetition, a lot of frequency, it would stick in people's minds. I ran it here once just to give you guys an idea of what it looks like. So DeSantis has been out fundraising and has even been traveling overseas to meet with foreign dignitaries. He still hasn't declared his intention to run now. I'm not sure when Biden is going to declare. We're told that it could come as early as tomorrow, but I need to check on the latest information. So he's supposed to formally declare this week, maybe tomorrow. DeSantis was asked about all of this during a visit to Japan today, and he said, I'm not a candidate, so we'll see if and when that changes. So playing coy. Who knows? Maybe he'll surprise everyone and say, not doing it. I think he's going to go. But some people are encouraging DeSantis to hit Trump back. But I don't know. I think he's keeping his powder dry. Trump's coming out early, attacking DeSantis. He knows he's his biggest threat for the nomination. But DeSantis, yeah, he's got time, man. Like, it's early in the game. It really is. Things can change so quickly. So Trump's going to have to keep up the momentum, keep up the attacks. But that's what's going on in that race. And I'm still playing this council meeting in my head. So they're moving along here. I think we're up to halfway through item 17. We'll be to 21 before you know it. And then we'll bring you up to date and we'll find out how they end up voting on this flag issue. And we'll go to the phones too tonight, I hope. Should. But, you know, that's what I wanted to say too. Like, I started to talk about this a little bit, and Leo was actually texting with me. We're just yakking a little bit just in text messages today about Tucker Carlson. And, you know, I mentioned to him that one of the reasons people come here every night is not because of me. It's because of the community, because of the chat room, because you guys interact with each other and with me, and because of the call-in portion of the show. And that's a big part of what we do here. It is a community. That's what makes the channel so resilient. That's the way social media works. With Tucker Carlson, he's going to be transitioning, if he chooses to create an online presence for himself as an independent, he'll have to adapt to that as well, because right now he's still a TV guy and he is sort of speaking to people. But online, it's more effective if you converse with people and it becomes interactive. That's what this medium is. That's what makes the YouTube platform successful. YouTube successful in spite of itself, in spite of the people who run it, honestly, because they've gone on a banning spree, I think, lately, kind of pushing a lot of people out. Tucker Carlson getting a lot of love today from media allies, friends, Megyn Kelly saying that it's a huge mistake for Fox to get rid of Tucker Carlson. And then there was this post which made me laugh. I'll run this for you here. So that's what happens when you can Tucker Carlson. The ratings tank. And yeah, it's going to be tough to replace him. But, you know, a lot of people are saying, I'm not going to watch Fox anymore. Fox is done. Fox is fake news now. Maybe, I don't know. You can see there are definite changes happening over there with Dan Bongino gone. Now Tucker Carlson. Something's going on. And this happening, I guess, in the wake of that $800 million lawsuit settlement between Fox and Dominion Voting Machines. It clearly has something to do with that. So what will Fox do to replace Tucker Carlson? Who would they bring in to do that? I don't know. Number one show? Number one by a long shot. Huge audience by today's standards. Strong, probably the strongest, I guess, conservative voice out there in mainstream media, bordering on the edge of alternative media at times. I think in many respects, Tucker Carlson aligned with the likes of Tulsi Gabbard, Redacted, Dan Bongino, when he was alive, Rush Limbaugh. Appeals very much to Trump supporters, although he came out in that leaked comment that he made where he said that he can't stand, he hates Donald Trump, or so he said. Very interesting guy. I think pretty grounded, pretty level-headed, pretty humble in many respects. When I've listened to interviews in the past where he talks about himself, which isn't very often, you know, he's a dog lover. He likes the outdoors, likes to go hunting. I think for birds, as I recall, like duck hunting. Yeah, in many ways, kind of an average sort of guy, but pretty sharp, very smart, great interviewer. Just did that interview with Elon Musk. And I guess if someone's going to come along and tap you on the shoulder when it's your time to go, I guess it is good to walk away when you're on the top, when you're on top. So that's a really good thing. It's always nice to do that. Julie G says Don Lemon is the new spokesperson for Bud Light. Yeah, I was going to comment on that story as well because see if I can find the story. Alyssa Hennerscheid, Bud Light's vice president of marketing, is being replaced by Todd Allen, most recently global vice president of Budweiser, according to reports from Beer Business Daily and Ad Age. I did get that report in from Ad Age the other day. We just haven't had time to really touch on it here. So yeah, 2 ad executives with Bud Light, the ones responsible for this marketing stunt where they put the image of Dylan Mulvaney on the beer can and sent it to the social media influencer. The whole thing has really backfired on the company. And I think it's just, for me, this is what it comes down to. Corporations, big companies in general, should learn from this because they haven't learned from these kinds of incidents in the past. Oh, feedback in my headphones from the council meeting. They should sell their products, in my opinion, and keep politics out of it. Politics is polarizing. And there are products today that I won't buy anymore. I was a very loyal, I thought I would be a lifelong customer. And there are products I will not buy. For example, I will not ever buy, ever again, any Gillette product. Ever. I stopped buying it when that ad campaign came out where they attacked men. And not everybody saw the ad campaign in the same way that I did, whereas a lot of people did. It was an attack on men, their very own customers, criticizing men. Very woke, extremely woke. Basically portraying men as a bunch of insensitive, sexist pigs. That's the way, what I took away from it. It was very insulting. I didn't like it, extremely woke, and I'll never buy, never, a Gillette product again. As long as I live. And that ad campaign was done by a very woke woman, filmmaker, with a political agenda. But these big corporations looking to improve their ESG scores, they engage in these kinds of campaigns. But it's just sell the beer or sell the razors, sell your shaving cream. Tell me why it's a good product. Do something funny in an apolitical way. But as soon as they go political like that, especially when they're injecting like heavy duty politics one way or the other, in both of these incidents, woke politics injected in there, you're alienating a big portion of your customer base. It's a mistake, man. Just sell the product. Keep it neutral. It's about the shaving cream. Or in this case, it's about the beer. I won't buy Nike anymore either because I don't like the affiliation with BLM, and it's not about anything racial so much. It's more about the politics, the BLM politics. It's all about the politics for me, the identity politics, the way that BLM is sometimes violent. I don't like it. I don't think that organization, myself, is properly oriented toward community values. So I won't buy Nike because of the kneeling with the NFL and other sports now that it's happened all because of that. And Nike full in with that. And I remember all of that going on. Rush Limbaugh was still alive, and he always wore Nike shirts. And he continued to wear them. And really, even he didn't think about it too much when all of that was going on. And his listeners could see him on the Ditto cam. And they said to him, hey, you have to stop wearing those, Rush. You have to stop wearing those Nike shirts. And he said, but I really like them. But eventually he stopped wearing them too. I think we're coming up here. Don't think we're quite there in the council meeting. Just let me listen in for just a second in the monitor. Yeah, no, it's not there yet. So again, there's another example of, you get involved, you involve politics in selling your product. You politicize a shirt in that way, or your shoes. I had Nike shoes at the time. So when they wore out, I just, I bought a different brand altogether. The funny thing, or maybe it's not a funny thing, but it's something to be aware of, these big corporations, sometimes you end up buying products from them anyway, and you don't realize it because over the decades, these huge corporations have swallowed up other companies and you don't even know it. You're not aware. So in the case of even Pfizer, they're so big that they own all kinds of different companies. I found out my father used to sell chewing gum. He was a salesman. He worked for a company called Adams Brands. They sold like Dentyne, Chiclets, products like that. And a few years ago, I discovered that Pfizer had actually come along. This is long after my dad retired. But they bought out that company, the company that my dad used to work for, which I guess it surprised me in a way, but that is the way that things have gone. There's this huge consolidation of wealth and power among large companies, large corporations. And these companies, there's a lot of dovetailing that goes on, between all the various companies. And that's why you look at a company like even fast food chains, right? And you'll see affiliations, connections between like Taco Bell and KFC. And in Canada, you look at companies like Harvey's fast food restaurant chain, and they're really part of a much larger group of companies, all restaurants. And they get better economies of scale that way as they grow larger and larger and larger. And over time, they become oligopolies, not monopolies, oligopolies, which is a few big companies controlling a market where you get it's almost like an illusion of competition when the government allows that concentration of ownership, because even when they're not supposed to, they end up colluding on pricing. And that's the case with cable systems, media companies, internet service providers, cell phone companies, especially. And to a large degree, too, I would say even oil companies. When you go to the gas stations, they're not supposed to price fix, but there are a lot of rules for gas stations, oil companies, but to prevent them from colluding on pricing, but they're always very, very close in price. And even in grocery store chains, there are not too many grocery stores out there, and there's more concentration of ownership than ever on that front as well, which is why they're easy targets for politicians who blame inflation on them. So it's all Loblaw's faults, or it's all, pick your grocery store chain. It's their fault. They just decided to put their prices up. Well, it isn't really that simple. Government is at the core to blame for it all. In fact, they're to blame for it all across the board, because not only have they printed too much money, they allowed these big companies to collude and get together and buy up their competitors to become more and more powerful over time, to the point where right now, Loblaw's grocery store chain in Canada also owns Shoppers Drug Mart. When I was a kid back in the late 60s, early 70s, there were quite a few different pharmacies out there, some of them independently owned. That's far less common today. It's hard almost to find an independently owned pharmacy. Very difficult. I think in this town, there is one, maybe two. It's still possible for a pharmacist to open his or her own pharmacy, but it takes, pretty substantial money. But the overlap there, Loblaw's, I go to the big Shoppers Drug Mart down the street, which is the most popular pharmacy in the town. And now that Loblaw's owns it, you go in there and you're getting your groceries and your butter and your milk, and they have all of those products in the one section. And then there's a pharmacy at the Loblaw's Superstore, which is the giant grocery store too, so it's almost like duplication. It's just an illusion of competition. You get that too in the especially in the media business. We have like companies like Bell Media own CTV and a whole bunch of newspapers and radio stations, specialty TV channels. They own cell phone companies, cell phone infrastructure. They probably own about 40% of all the media assets out there. And because they all are interconnected, doesn't matter if you read something in media, watch something in media, hear something in media, however you're consuming it, as it comes to the infrastructure, boom, 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 they all kind of bounce off the towers. They share the towers. They share the infrastructure nationwide, and they're all getting a piece of you all the time. You make a phone call from a Rogers tower in Canada, and it bounces over to a Bell Media tower, and they're sharing the infrastructure, and they're all feeding off each other. They're all feeding at the same trough, really, which is the public. But it's just a few big companies now. And but when I was a kid, like I say, there was a smaller drugstore in our plaza, and then there was another chain called Big V Drugstores, which got bought out by Shoppers Drug Mart, which now has been bought out by Loblaws. And just like in Demolition Man, the movie with Sylvester Stallone, that science fiction action movie about the future, all restaurants will be Taco Bell. Think about it.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
And speaking of big companies, here's the signing ceremony, getting the deal done with Volkswagen. This is Justin Trudeau signing with the head dude from Volkswagen on that $13 billion deal where the government's going to give over a decade, $13 billion to VW to build what will end up being one of the largest battery plants in the world for electric vehicles. $13 billion from us. That's not government money. That's our money, taxpayers. $13 billion. Volkswagen puts in $7 billion. Pretty good deal. What a deal. So, it'd be probably difficult to find any politician in the vicinity of St. Thomas, Ontario, which is just down the road from me here, who would be against this because, yeah, it certainly looks like it's going to generate a lot of jobs, at least at first. Direct and indirect. Trudeau saying that it will provide a return of $200 million in the long run. But I have my doubts. I'm worried about it. It's a record investment. Trudeau saying that they did it because of the massive incentives, financial incentives that the Biden administration is offering automotive companies through their electric vehicle industry initiatives and the Inflation Reduction Act. That's why they're doing it here in Canada. And there was competition from some U.S. states that wanted that same battery plant established in the U.S. So I don't know. It's a slippery slope, man. Now that they've done this, other companies are going to want similar treatment, and it sets a precedent. Governments investing record amounts of money into the automotive industry to transition from gasoline powered vehicles to electric, and really not giving the industry any choice. Not really. Not really, because once you get going down that road, well, how do you stop driving? They're all in on it. So like it or not, it's coming. And I don't know how you square that with the idea of these 15-minute cities that everybody thinks we're going to be locked down and imprisoned in. I mean, it's pretty typical of government to drive the economy with one foot on the brake and one foot on the gas at the same time. But if they're going to lock us in 15-minute cities, why are they spending $1 billion to upgrade the Gardiner Expressway in Toronto and at the same time spending $13 billion of our tax money and getting a VW to invest in the production of electric vehicle batteries? They obviously want to sell these cars to people. If you have a car, they're going to expect you to drive someplace, and these are personal vehicle battery packs. So I don't know, man. A lot of things government does don't make sense. So over here, they have this planning stuff that has everybody worried that they're going to lock us into basically prison camps of some kind. And over here, they're going to be producing cars that are supposed to give us freedom. Freedom? Not the kind of freedom we've always had. I guess in those electric vehicles, they'll be able to track you because they're essentially cell phones on wheels. And it is amazing the kind of data that these vehicles can send back, because it stores data on, for maintenance, for insurance companies, how fast you drive. It's going to be monitoring all that stuff. You watch. You're worried about central bank digital currency. You should be more concerned, I think, in some respects, about your car. They're going to know everything about you, man. They're going to know where you go, how fast you drive, when you got there, when you left, how much you weigh. They'll probably be monitoring your biometrics to know what your heart rate is, what your blood sugar level is, whether you went through a drive-through at McDonald's or Burger King, and whether you actually support Taco Bell. And I don't go to Taco Bell. I can't stand Taco Bell. I don't know how people eat the stuff, but I guess in the future, if I have an electric vehicle, they'll force me to go there because all the restaurants are going to be Taco Bell. And I'm not looking forward to it, because that is not real food. You want to know where they're going to put those crickets? You'll be picking them up at the drive-thru, baby. Guaranteed. I don't know when, but it's coming. Crickets at the drive-thru. Would you like crickets with that? A side of crickets? They won't tell you. They'll grind them up, turn them into super fries. Super crickets, disguised as frings. Onion rings, disguised as French fries made with crickets. It's not going to be pretty, folks. Hang on. I think we're just about to agenda 21. Item 21, rather, on the agenda. We're going to find out what's going on with that flag fight. It's coming up. Don't go away.
Maverick News. The world is watching. We are Mavericks. We say no to the Trudeau and Biden New World Order. And to bugs. Because bugs are creepy and gross. And people should not eat bugs. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, I'm back. And there is this story tonight, too, that I know a lot of you will want to hear about. This is the NBC version of the story. Proud Boys were thirsting for violence on January 6th, according to the DOJ, Department of Justice. After 3 months, jurors will soon begin deliberating the fates of 5 members of the Proud Boys who face rare seditious conspiracy charges. So it says here that what happened at the Capitol on January 6, 2021 was a, quote, a national disgrace, according to U.S. Attorney Connor Mulrow, who told that to jurors as the 3-month-long trial for these Proud Boys nears its end. But for the Proud Boys, January 6th was, quote, mission accomplished, Mulrow said. They had done it. They had stopped certification of the election. So we have 5 members of the Proud Boys. You may remember Enrique Tarrio, Ethan Nordine, Joseph Biggs, Zachary Rail, and Dominic Pizzola. They face 9 counts, including a rarely used charge of seditious conspiracy. It's a Civil War era statute that has been used against a small group of the January 6th defendants. Pizzola faces a 10th count, accused of allegedly stealing a police shield that he allegedly used to smash out a Capitol window. Also, 2 members of the Oath Keepers have been convicted of seditious conspiracy in one trial in the fall, and 4 Oath Keepers were convicted at another trial back in January in separate January 6th cases. A few members of the Oath Keepers pled guilty to seditious conspiracy, as did a member of the Proud Boys, Jeremy Bertino, who testified at the Proud Boys trial. Mulrow went on to tell the jurors that the Proud Boys thought politics meant actual physical combat, a battle between good and evil in the most literal sense. He says the defendants conspired to, quote, stop certification of the election by any means necessary, including by force, Mulrow said. He says a conspiracy, quote, can be unspoken, a mutual understanding reached by a wink and a nod. He went on here and said, people generally don't commit crimes for no reason. He said, using force against the government is not something that any group of people would take lightly. So you see the way they're dealing with these guys. They're not messing around. And I know that the views of most are that, well, maybe not most, but certainly the alternative view is that the January 6th prisoners are political prisoners. And we saw even with our program with Caleb of the Center for Political Innovation and Lori the other night, the CPI folks are calling for the release of all political prisoners, including the January 6ers, who they believe are victims of political persecution. Regardless of whether they agree or disagree with the politics of the January 6ers, that is what they are calling for. So those are the final arguments. We'll see how that all goes down. And I know a lot of you guys are, paying attention to that stuff, as am I. As am I. Still monitoring this feed out of the council chambers. Still on item 18, coming up quickly to item 21. And we don't want to miss that. There will be further discussion. We saw the deputations, which is the public speaking to this issue on the flags, with the motion from Rhonda Jubinville, a prominent member of the Freedom community, calling for an end to this practice of raising flags for different community groups in front of government buildings in this area where I live, simply because they're not doing it for all groups. And only the mayor gets to decide in this community which groups get that public boost and which groups don't. And while the arguments by some in the public delegations were focused on inclusivity, arguing that it's important to raise the flags of these various groups to make sure that all groups feel welcome, especially minority groups, I would argue that when you're telling some groups that, no, you can't raise your flag, and that is what has been going on, that is in itself exclusive. That's exclusivity, not inclusivity. So I understand the argument that they're making on that front, but in reality, not so much the policy, but the actual practice that has been observed by me and others is that the municipality is engaging in some level of discrimination because they are excluding some groups. And I believe some of those groups have been Christian-based, church-based groups, which feel slighted. That's why this motion has been tabled. And I kind of agree with it. If you can't do it for everybody, okay, hang on a second here. No, it's still on item 18. So we'll be coming back shortly to that. But that is what that issue is really all about. That's what the issue is about. And we will be dealing with that shortly. But what we're going to do now is we're going to go to the phones. So don't go away. I'm going to get everything queued up. Here's the number to call. I'll put that up on the screen first. And don't forget, you can support the channel at freedomreporters.com or maverickdonations.com. That takes you to the Give Send Go donation page. This takes you to the PayPal, freedomreporters.com. We're demonetized at the moment off YouTube, so we can't even accept super chats there. You can donate through the Rumble Rants over on the Rumble channel. If you haven't subscribed on Rumble, please consider doing that. That would help us out a great deal. We still want to keep the YouTube going, but we are growing a lot over on Rumble. And I see that some people have kind of left YouTube and have gone over there. So I'm encouraged by that. And I'm seeing that some of the broadcasts are now generating more views on Rumble than on the YouTube platform itself. So we've actually increased our overall numbers, but YouTube is kind of stagnant. And that's unfortunate because we had a lot of traction going on YouTube, but That is censorship in the age of Bill C-11 and the current political environment. Oh my goodness. Okay. Okay. Stay with me. Be right back.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
Okay, I'm back. You can join the conversation at 1-833-975-3733. I'm setting up the phone lines right now, and I'm going to run the promos so you know what number to call, even though it's on the screen, pretty clear, but this will give me a chance to finish setting everything up. 1-833-975-3733.
Join the conversation. Call 1-833-975-3733. That's 1-833-975-FREE. Speak up. Speak out. Make your voice heard. Maverick News. Fighting for freedom by defending your right to free speech. Be a Maverick. Join us.
Okay, as Dr. Johnny Fever would say, okay, fellow babies, it's time to go to the phones, and here's Steve. He's first up. Hello, Steve. How are you?
Hi, Rick. How's it going?
Great.
Just a couple comments tonight. I said, I told you I only had one, but actually I have three, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I agree with you on the Gillette thing. I haven't bought a Gillette product since I saw that commercial as well.
Yeah.
And that satanic temple, I don't know what you would call it there.
Yep.
I know it's a card for her, but trick or whatever. I think they did that to Marjorie Taylor Greene as well in the States. And that's such an underhanded thing, because they'll update her Wikipedia account now and say, oh, you know, she's a known contributor to the Satanic Temple or whatever. Like, it's such an underhanded maneuver when somebody does that.
Yep.
I feel kind of bad for her.
So it's beyond insulting, beyond disturbing for someone of faith, right? A Christian.
Exactly.
Right? It's horrific in reality to think that your name, your existence, some part of you is associated with Satanism when you are a believer in God. What a terrible thing to do to someone.
Yeah, and that abortion part of it too, right? It's just, I mean, I've been kind of following that for a little while now. They're coming to prominence in the States when they got, recognition as a religion. And I don't know if you remember, but I think it happened in Tennessee. They removed the Lord's Prayer in the morning from schools. So a Christian group was going to the state legislature or Senate or whatever they call it. Mm-hmm. And do you know who showed up to support them? The Satanic Church, Temple. Mm-hmm. And can you guess why?
Well, lay it on me.
Because what's good for one is good for the other. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to put the Lord's Prayer back in the school, we got ours in there too. That was the only group that showed up to support the Christians. I mean, they're not dumb. These people are are very intelligent and very underhanded when it comes to stuff like this. They can manipulate, well, and they're at the hand of Satan. They can manipulate as well as anyone can.
Yeah.
And the abortion thing, I just can't get my head around how they get to have sacrifices in the United States. You can call it an abortion or whatever, but I mean, if you look at California, I mean, even after birth, they can still do abortion. So you're sacrificing a live child at that point.
And you know what? It's like they're laughing at Rhonda, and they're laughing at society. They're laughing at Christians. They have contempt when they do something like that for the other person's beliefs. They're like, look at us, look what we're doing. We're aborting children in your name. Ha ha ha. What are you gonna do about it? It's disgusting. That's what that is. That's not just a mishap or that's an intentional slight that goes beyond repulsive, in my view. And whoever did that should be absolutely ashamed of themselves, but they're not. They won't be, because they have no moral compass.
Yeah, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. Well, like Deborah, I think it was Deborah said the other night, this is a good versus evil battle. It's not a right versus left battle anymore.
Yep.
It's a good versus evil.
Yes, I agree with you, man, 100%.
Yeah, I fully believe it.
This is paganism on full display. And that's because we've rejected God as a society, and we're in the process of purging God from our society. We're becoming a godless society. As a result, this is coming in to fill the vacuum. You get Satanism, paganism. Something's going to come in to fill that void for people. It's the state replacing the church. It's the other side. It's evil. It never rests. And it's
right about that.
It's terrible, man, because it just results in more polarization, more friction, more division, more fighting. And we're seeing it on display here tonight too, in council chambers, with this flag issue. In my opinion, this is local, as I say, to my community, but everybody should be watching this, because this is all of these issues wrapped up in one, being dealt with on a micro level. But what happens here tonight actually is a reflection of our society as a whole, both in Canada and the US. And it's another look at what is going to be coming. This motion won't be passed tonight. I can pretty much guarantee it. I can see it coming. They're going to defeat this. They're going to keep on raising those flags. They're going to continue to exclude basically the Christians, the Christian churches that come along, and the they'll say no to right to life, but they'll say yes to pro-abortion when it comes to flag raising.
Exactly. And one of the women that was speaking there when you were playing the council was a representative of the United Church, I noticed. I have family members that were attending the United Church, but they've gone so woke that it's not a church to them anymore. They don't recognize it as a church. They're now attending another church.
Yeah.
But I feel terrible for them. They've been in that church for over 40 years, and they just had to leave. It's just not a church. And I agree with them. United Church has lost its way a while back. No offense to my fellow Christians on that, but
yep.
I could go on at length about how I feel about different churches at this point. They've definitely been infiltrated at the highest of levels. Just look at the Pope, for that matter. I think we discussed that on another show, but
yeah. And I'll tell you too that Thursday this week, Ian Nunn is going to join us on the program. Ian has spent a lot of time researching all of this. He has been working on an article about the spiritual war that we are actually fighting, this World War III, this info war, all of it, it really does have a very strong spiritual component to it. And he's been digging into a lot of that. And he's going to be here Thursday as a special guest reporter, freedom reporter, again, as you know, he comes on from time to time, and he's going to be discussing all of that, giving us a presentation on that on Thursday. So you're not going to want to miss that, folks.
That'll be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Any thoughts on Tucker Carlson tonight, Steve, before we move on to the next caller?
Yeah, well, that's a huge blow, I think. Some people would say they saw it coming, but I did not see that coming. I saw an interview, well, a couple of interviews with him, I don't know, a couple of weeks back that kind of went viral. And he was saying that he had so much control over what he got to do. I noticed you had mentioned about him reading off the teleprompter. As I understood it, he gets a lot of say in what goes on that teleprompter, but I guess he doesn't have as much pull in that contract as he had hoped he did.
Yeah.
I think that they just balanced it out with Don Lemon on the other side, so it doesn't look so bad. But I won't miss Don Lemon, I can tell you that. I'm glad he's off the air, but I'm going to miss Tucker.
Yeah. Don Lemon, not a fan. Not a fan, man. He, no, way too woke, way too heavy into the identity politics, racially divisive, not good for society. Nope. No.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'll tell you this, though. It's like, what was I going to say? When it comes to, Tucker, it's that $800 million Dominion lawsuit, the settlement there, right? It's coming in the wake of that, and there are many references being made to that tonight. That is absolutely a factor in this decision. I don't know if it was because a deal was made, maybe even an unwritten gentleman's style agreement that is part of the settlement. You have to get rid of Tucker Carlson, or if it's just a reprimand for Tucker because the network had to pay out on this, and he was one of the key figures in talking about that issue. But I'll say this, as we move forward, people need to be increasingly aware that lawsuits will become a more common feature on social media responses as part of that. That's because, people are, it's like the Wild West right now, with people making all kinds of slanderous statements and accusations against people, personal attacks, mudslinging, accusing people of crimes. And when you do that kind of thing, you can be sued for defamation of character. You need to be able to prove what you've said. And when someone is charged with a crime, for instance, you need to actually be able to back that up and prove it if you say that someone has done something. And if they go to court even if they're charged with something, this is at least the way it works in Canada, and I'm certain largely in the US as well. If they're charged with a crime, say of sexual assault, and you say that they did it, but you don't qualify that statement and say that they've only been charged but not convicted, if you say they did it and you convict them, you could be charged yourself with defamation, especially if it goes to trial and the person is acquitted, found not guilty. Then they can come back and say, you've damaged my reputation. You accused me and convicted me in public, and it's just not true. You've defamed my character. I saw this actual thing happen just yesterday on social media when we talked about that person who is clearly male, but said he identified as a woman, went into a woman's shelter in Windsor, Ontario, and has been charged because of accusations of climbing into a bed in the woman's shelter and sexually assaulting a woman who was a client there. But that has not gone to court yet. So I saw someone in a social media post just yesterday say, this person did it. They went and did this thing. And it's like, you just convicted them. They haven't had their trial yet. They haven't had due process. But you're saying this person did it. if you, so now you've left yourself open to a lawsuit. That's what I have to be careful of here all the time too, is even when people call in, right? That's why I'm always listening, and I'm qualifying a lot of things that people say to keep us out of potential legal hot water.
Yeah, you've backed a few people out of some bad statements. I don't understand why it is that they get to, more or less, how do I word this?
You can read it first, and then we'll.
Are you still there?
Counselor
Yeah, I'm
Hall
still
will be
here.
happy
Hang
to
on.
second it, I'm sure.
Sure. That fleet management be directed.
It's okay. We're still not up to the flag issue.
Oh,
I just
really?
don't want to miss the vote.
Yeah, no, I
Steve,
understand.
go
You
ahead.
put time into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't understand why it is that, I don't know if this is controversial or not, but when it's transgender, so, I'm not a very tall guy, and I would love it if they'd lower the basketball net or put a second one at the end of the court so I could play in the NBA as well, but that's not going to happen.
Right.
So I don't understand why it is that a transgender gets to jump in the ring with females. Why don't they have to punch up? I've always been told if you got to step up to the next level. You don't step down because you have a change. You step forward into the more challenging position. This transgender thing bothers me. I think that there should either be a separate league, or the people with testosterone should stay with the people with testosterone.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have all the answers either, right? But it's like, I know this. I don't want people fighting. I don't think that we should be attacking each other on these issues in the way that we are, because it's really nasty stuff that I'm seeing out there. And a lot of it is, very hateful, quite honestly, on both sides. It makes me very uncomfortable. I don't like it. But like you, it's like, well, if you're transgender, you're clearly not a woman. Maybe you're not a man. Maybe you do need your own league. I don't know. I don't have the answers, but I think that we need to find a solution that makes everybody happy or more agreeable. I do agree, though. It's like, if you're a transgender person, you're not really a woman. You may be something else, but you're not a woman, in my opinion.
That's why they're called transgender. Exactly.
Right. So should you be playing with the women? I maybe you need a different category altogether. I don't know, man. You guys,
that'd be my guess.
You work it. I don't have an answer to that one. So, and same thing with washrooms, right? If where you need maybe you need a separate one altogether.
So that's what I've been saying since day one when I was working in the schools still. I'm like, why? How about another washroom? Like, this isn't making sense to me, but I was short for that. I got out of there fast. These changes have really put me out of work, I tell you. I can't keep my mouth shut, so. Well, I mean, I can keep my mouth shut. I just can't keep my mouth shut when it comes to my values.
Yeah. Well, I certainly am in favor of trying to accommodate people where we can accommodate people. But you can't accommodate two people with completely opposing points of view by forcing one person to accept the other. You need to come up with an accommodation. You see what I'm saying? And I think you agree with me on this. It's like, if a woman doesn't want a transgender person in their washroom with them, you can't please both people by saying, no, you have to allow that person in. That to saying to the woman, you have to allow the transgender person into that washroom. You can't, like, it's I mean, I guess you could have made that same argument back in the day when it was the color of somebody's skin. Well, you're not allowed to use that washroom because you don't have the right color skin. So I guess you could use used it back then, but I don't think so. This, like, to me, this is on a different plane.
Yeah, this is different. I think personally. I mean, I think it's different. Back to that school thing for a second.
Yeah.
The school I was talking about, actually, two of the schools that I'm talking about, they had like wings of the school that they had shut down because of the less children with bathrooms in them. They could have opened them up and said, you know, why don't we open up a third one? We're not going to make the transgenders go down there, but you know, maybe the boys will go down there, or maybe the girls go down there, or maybe anyone who feels more comfortable can go down there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just down the hall. It's lit up. It's, you know, there's cameras in the hall. But no, they just kept them in boys and female. Boys and girls. And I just like, there's got to be a better solution here. We have uncomfortable people, children. We have uncomfortable children here. Like, figure this out. So I wasn't a teacher, and anyway, we'll leave that apart. No, I'm with you. There has to be a better solution, and I'm not the one to ask. But I worry when I see the sports being all dominated by a new gender, I guess, in my mind, or I don't know. I guess it's not a new gender. I don't even know. I'm going to just shut up before I dig a hole.
Yeah, you know, I don't think it's new. It's been, you know, it's always been, you know, part of society. Like it's just there. And that's why we need to accept it and tolerate it. If you don't agree with it, you at least need to tolerate it and accept that it's there. But on the other side of it, you also need to understand that other people are not comfortable being in a washroom with you. So, you know, I think we've made our point.
Yes.
Yeah, we're up to item 20 here. So let me move on here, Steve. Pick up another call, and I appreciate your time as always. Good call.
Thanks, Rick. Appreciate it.
All right,
good night.
Take care. See ya. Okay, here's Robert. Hello, how are you tonight?
Rick, I've been waiting for you forever, ever, and ever. So I'll tell you what's going on. As a gay man, right?
Yeah.
I married a Muslim man. My mother is Métis. That means my mother is Indigenous, right? Full Indigenous.
Okay, yeah.
There are 3 genders, right? But my grandmother told me, she said, they are like altering children to be another gender. So the Anishinaabe people, and all you Nish people know what I'm talking about, is that this is like some sort of conspiracy, but they're not 3. There are 3 genders in the Indigenous world, right? But what they're doing is wrong. They're cutting off their penises and their breasts and all the above. In the 3 gender in Indigenous communities, there's none of that. Nobody chops off your breasts. Nobody chops off your penises. You're all welcomed in the community for your well-being and your gifts. And that's what I want to say. It's just, this is crazy what's going on. Seriously, you need to really look at Indigenous peoples for the communities. So there is none of this chop, 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 no penises, and no medication. In our community, it's like you're born like by spirit, like me, like I'm gay and not bi, and I don't know. I'm just frustrated with this transgender thing, but it doesn't exist. It really, really doesn't exist. The white community, they say to me, is that there's just some crazy political thing going on. But when their children are like 16, 17, 18 years old, they can have any children. Why is that? Why is that? And you know, all you Anishinaabe people, I'm talking about what's going on. And hear what I say. There is none of this. There is no medication to be a woman. There's no medication to be like a clitoris or anything of that, right? Right. So I stood by tonight and I listened, you know, and it's just wrong. They are wronging the children. So let's just say this, and I said to a grandmother of mine from Six Nations tonight, you know, she's going over to the Wabano Center, new teaching centers in Ottawa. And she says, if they chop off their pee-pee and their breasts, what's going to happen to all of our children here in their community? And she's talking about Indigenous communities, not white communities. She's worried about her own communities in Indigenous cultures, right? So if all Indigenous children chop off their pee-pee and their breasts, what's going to happen? Right? Right.
Well, certainly any surgical intervention.
I want to know, Rick. I just want to know. I just want to know, like, right? In our community, it's like there are 3 genders, but we don't have to take medications. And we don't have to any of the above. And like I said to you, Rick, there's nothing like this in our community. Like,
so when you say there are 3 genders, what do you mean by 3? Like, are you talking about male, female, and what,
there are,
hermaphrodites?
like, if you Google, like, if you look in Google, like, if you Google it, and I will send you a link later, tomorrow or something. I was talking to my auntie a few weeks back. There is, like, a gender of, like, a double spirit, and then there's a third spirit person, right? But they don't have to chop off their pee-pee. So there is a third gender spirit in our community, like Dakota or like the Mohawk Nations. It exists. I asked my aunt about that. She's from Oneida, Six Nations, right? And I said to her, Dawn, is this possible? She goes, yeah. But they're not, like, it's just like, it's not the same. There are 3 genders.
Are you talking when the third gender? Are
like
you talking,
hermaphrodites or...
Yeah, are you talking about hermaphrodites, where they're born with both
right?
male and female genitalia?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. Thanks, Rick. But it's not like...
Yeah, that's a real thing, folks. It really does happen. Yes.
No, I know it does happen.
Yep.
But as a gay man, I remember, like, as a boy, as a young boy, like, I played hockey, and then I go over and scoot off to play Barbies with my best friend, right? A Polish girl, right? Right? I like that. But I go back and play hockey and football and rugby, and I like that. But it doesn't mean I didn't like my sexual identity. I didn't mean I want my penis cut off. Seriously, dude, like, being a gay man, it's very hard at my age. I've never had children. It's horrible. But from Indigenous cultures, everything is good to go, right? Like, we believe in the Creator and we believe in God and all those kind of things, but there is no such thing as a transgender thing. Where did this transgender thing come from? And I'm going to go ask, I'm going to the Wabano Center. Wabano Center means in Mohawk language, like, mother of womb, right? All you Nish people know that. I'm going to go there and I'm going to ask her, what is going on with this transgender stuff? As a teacher, an educator in Indigenous cultures, and Indigenous cultures saves our world, right? Not politics, Indigenous culture. And I hope you agree with that, Rick. But there's no such thing as transgender. But there are, like, 3 sexes. But we don't have to do medical stuff, chop our pee-pee or our breast or anything. But there are. So
because
I learned
in your view, and I guess the definition of transgender would be someone who's born as one sex and then they're trying to transition to the other using unnatural medical means. Is that how you would say it?
Exactly, Rick. Exactly. You're right. You're right on the spot about all this. all of it. So what I suggest is that I'm going to go to see an elder in about a week. She's Dakota. I live in Canada, and she's going to talk about all this transgender stuff, and I'd be happy to send you a link. And it doesn't exist, this transgender stuff. It doesn't. And this is what I like about the Indigenous community.
When you say it doesn't exist, though, what do I say to my friend who called today and says that he is transgender? And I hope I'm using the right pronoun, he.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, look at me. Like when I was a boy, like when I was like 6 years old, I like playing with dolls. Doesn't mean I'm transgender. It's just that I identify with like dressing up with dolls. It was nice for me. I like dressing up with dolls. But then I'd be like, I want to go play hockey tomorrow. Great. Doesn't mean I'm transgender. What? That's ridiculous. Because you identify as a gay man, as a feminine side at moments of life, right? I like to play doll. I like to brush your hairs. That's nice. It's calming for me. I identify with my mother. She was an amazing woman. She had 12 children. God bless my mom. She had one daughter and all boys, right? So there was none of this BS about transgender. But in Indigenous communities and researcher work, and I really, really want to do that, but there are 3 genders, but we never chopped off her pee-pee or her breast or ever. And the after effect, what happens? Who is dealt to deal with that? Right? Who is that to deal with that? Who? Justin Trudeau? No, he's gone. He's going to be out another year and a half, right? So he doesn't care. But anyways, beside, I don't want to get into politics now, but that's what I'm saying. My call was about transgenderism.
If you don't want to get into politics, you're in the wrong place. Too late.
I know, sweetie. I know, sweetie. I know, sweetie. But in our community, in the Indigenous communities, there are 3 genders, but nobody's ever asked us to cut off our pee-pee or breast or any of that. You know, none of it.
Let me ask you a question. I want to know, with all of this stuff going on, I'm seeing a lot of anger out there. And to me, oh, hang on a second. We got to go to the
Canadian national flag, the Ontario provincial flag, and the Chatham-Kent municipal flag.
Here we go.
And whereas there are flagpoles in front of other Chatham-Kent Municipal Service Center buildings across Chatham-Kent, and whereas in some circumstances, other flags representing different organizations, groups, or movements have flown under the direction of the Chatham-Kent Mayor's office. And whereas some organizations, groups, or movements have not been afforded the opportunity to also have their representing flag flown. Therefore, be it resolved that Council direct administration to avoid controversy and discrimination while encouraging inclusion of all Chatham-Kent residents under the federal, provincial, and municipal flags by stating the only flags that shall be flown at the Chatham-Kent Civic Centre and all municipal service centres across Chatham-Kent will be the Canadian national flag, the Ontario provincial flag, and the Chatham-Kent municipal flag.
Councillor Bondi, you want to second that?
Sure, Mayor Kent. And I have an amendment that, sorry, I didn't send in, but I talked to you earlier about something else I wanted to do, and that was kind of killed. So,
okay. So you want to talk to,
I did.
But you want an amendment, Councillor Jubenville, do you want to hear the amendment before we move on?
Sure.
Okay. Councillor Bondi, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, because it might not be friendly. I don't know. So the amendment would be that any exception to the flag raising policy be the sole decision of council.
Councillor Jubenville, do you consider that a friendly amendment?
Yes, I do.
Can I speak to that briefly?
I'll go to Councillor Jubenville to talk about her motion, and then we'll go to you.
Great.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I would like to thank all those who came tonight to deliver deputations in person, both against and in favor of my motion. As many of you know or may not know, this motion regarding flags was brought forward, in my opinion, because of discrimination to one group that represents thousands of people across Chatham-Kent. Personally, I feel no special interest group should be the recipient of discrimination, and it would have been wonderful to see all special interest flags fly, unless, of course, it is a group that incites violence, hate, or fear. Unfortunately, here we are. I am perplexed by those who advocate for their own flag, or those who advocate for inclusion do so with little to no regard for other groups. While trying to be inclusive, we are actually perpetuating division. While most of the special interest flags advocate for wonderful organizations that are worthy of spreading a purposeful message, why do they need a municipal flagpole to do so? To be fully transparent, I've received hateful messages, and I actually received a hateful letter on my desk tonight as I walked in, and emails. I have been called words that I had to look up the meaning of. I've had 2 wishes of death and a witch's spell cast on me, all because I feel our 3 governmental flags are what is needed outside of municipal centers. These hateful messages all sadly come from groups of people who preach inclusivity. Now, while I have also received emails and messages in opposition to my motion that were very respectful and thought-provoking, why would I now, as a councillor, feel compelled to support some of these groups that wish to me death and hate over a flag? This should concern all of council. While I did receive some disheartening messages, I have also received a plethora of support from thousands across CK. To my fellow councillors, I hope you realize there are more constituents in favor of this motion than against it. I have the emails, messages, and letters to prove it, as do most of you. I also want to thank those constituents who have held me up in prayer against the wrongful and hateful words against me. Some of these words cast against me are from people sitting in these council chambers, and that saddens me to say. Just to clarify, for public record, I am not anti-Black, I am not racist, and I am not anti-LGBTQ+. I know and love many people in all of these communities. Some people are advocating for a flag raising policy. In theory, this seems okay, but again, the decision-making will be put in the hands of administration and enforced arbitrarily. The flag needs to be decided by council, who were elected by the good people of Chatham-Kent. The flags represent Chatham-Kent residents, so they need to be decided upon by the people who were elected by the constituents of Chatham-Kent. If that can't happen, a flag policy will not help us remedy this situation. The division created by some contentious flags is concerning. Nearby Norwich Township was witness to the burning and desecration of pride flags last June. Is this what we want to see happen here? I know I don't. Instead of dividing all of us into little groups that align with different flags, why don't we all align with each other under the 3 flags that represent who we really are? Canadians, Ontarians, and Chatham-Kent residents, instead of fighting amongst ourselves over what flag is worthy of flying and what flag isn't. My motion was intended to bring all of us together, not create more division. Perhaps a councillor could make a motion to install a community flagpole near our municipal centers across Chatham-Kent. This flagpole would don the flags of every legitimate community organization that makes a request to have their flags flown. In closing, my intentions were not to silence any organization, but I feel our municipal flagpoles should represent all of us. Our municipal flagpoles should not be used as a platform for any organizations. We should remain nonpartisan, unbiased, and impartial. We should not be used to promote the ideals, rights, or political views of any organizations, as we must remain cognizant that not all Chatham-Kent residents align with all special interest flags. It is not the municipality's role to promote or mandate these said groups. As the motion goes to vote, I do hope my fellow councillors have listened to their constituents. After speaking to our Municipal Integrity Commissioner today, she reminded me that many municipalities across Ontario have a similar policy where only the governmental flags are flown. As always, after council has decided on the direction of what we will proceed on this issue, I will, as always, respect and uphold the democratic process. Thank you.
Councillor Bondi.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I won't be nearly as smooth as that, as I don't have anything written out. So my amendment, sorry, I've got a bit of a cold, would sort of, give this a little bit of room, right? So the amendment would allow for an exception. Basically what I'm trying to do with that is to not have council kick this back to administration and say, come up with a policy that would be instituted by administration. Maybe we would approve it. Maybe it would just happen. Something's got to happen because, as we all know, when this first came up, we received a email from Mr. Dubin explaining that this decision was the mayor's office, not necessarily the mayor, but the mayor's office decision whether a flag would go up or down. And then I read in the paper that the mayor said, no, it's actually a senior administration decision. So I don't know if we have a policy at the moment or if it just happens or not. So that's where we are. That's how we got here. Now, speaking to my amendment, I think that there should be the ability for an exception. The Royal Canadian Legion, for instance, obviously, I think that's a kind of the number one no-brainer. Terry Fox, these are flags that I think everybody probably agrees upon. And if we are to have an exception, then I think it would come to council. A councillor would make a motion for an exception, then council would make that decision, and then we all wear it. If it's for a pride flag or if it's for Terry Fox, we vote on it. And we were elected to make these decisions. And I think it's fair on all sides that the three governmental flags fly sort of predominantly, but not perpetually. And if we're to make an exception, then we make the exception, the people that were elected, not leaving it into the hands of administration because, for as much as I'm sure they're good intention, this is something that's out in front of the municipality. It reflects, I would think, mayor and council, for this term. So I just believe that this should be a council decision if there is to be any exceptions. And I know some will say, oh, well, I don't want to get into that. As a councillor, I think we have to remind each other, we're all getting paid about $36,000 a year to sit around here. And, we're not here that often. So I'm okay to spend 15 minutes every now and again doing something like this. And we won't get silly flags like National Cupcake Day. I don't think any one of us is going to make a motion to raise a cupcake flag, right? So we're not going to get the silly stuff. We'll get things that people obviously feel are genuine and important enough and authentic enough to bring and use the time of council to promote. And it'll be voted upon. If it fails, it fails. The flag doesn't go up. If it passes, it passes. The flag goes up. Detail would be given as to the organization, how long the flag goes up on what day. And I think it's just fair. I think it calms this thing down a little bit. And again, I'll say it for the 20th time, it puts the decision back in the hands of council. And that's where I think it should be. And that's it. Thank you.
So I just need to clarify something. When I read this motion, it talks about not flying anything, that any exception to the flag raising policy. Right now, we don't have a flag raising policy. So how can we have an exception to it? That's why I just need to clarify how this flows.
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. Well, I would think if so my amendment would only apply if that passes, right? So that would be the policy. So my amendment would amend that because that would become the policy, right? So my amendment would provide for an exception to that policy, correct?
Yeah, I think I think if the policy is the way it's written here, which is basically that the only flags that would be flown would be those three, that is the policy. That's the direction to the organization, and that would be the only exception is if something comes to council. That's the way I read the motion.
Yeah, and that's about right. Like an exception would be if something came to council, so council would make the exception for whatever that may be.
I do want to remind council that we have a flag lowering policy, not to complicate things, but that has been approved by council. It's actually very much based on the federal approach to flag lowering. So that still remains a policy that's in place. We can bring that forward after we deal with this tonight so that you can have a look at it. I think it's two very different things, but some people do sometimes confuse the two. One is lowering, one is about basically, as you heard tonight, one is about recognizing different groups. So I just want you to be aware that there is a policy that deals with flag lowering. That has been approved by council. So.
Thank you.
Okay, so I've got three speakers, other speakers, Councillor B. McGregor, Councillor Anderson, Councillor Finn. Is there anyone else that would, oh, sorry, and Councillor Crew. Yes, sorry, my writing here is a little, so I'll start with Councillor Crew and then Councillor B. McGregor.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I want to start by saying to Councillor Jubenville, I'm sorry for what you've gone through because that is unacceptable and unforgivable in this community, and everyone at this table are here to do work. Having said that, I'm not going to support your motion. But I got a message here from a 7-year-old. Her name's Violet, and she's in grade 1. And she says, I think that other flags should be allowed to fly because flags include people and show people that you love and care about them. I would feel sad not to see flags like the Pride flag or the Franco Ontario flag or the Terry Fox flag flying, signed Violet. So I'm not going to support that, only because I believe that our community, and I know there's people that want the 3 flags, there's others that want community flags, but Mr. Mayor, if this fails, I have a motion that I would like you to come back to me to read. Thank you.
Councillor B. McGregor, followed by Councillor Anderson, then Councillor Finn.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff, and thank you to Councillor Crew, and I look forward to hopefully the opportunity to vote on that motion. And I think that the prudent way forward is the direction other communities have taken when faced with a similar challenge and adopting a policy that allows what is often a very important symbolic step for groups that have traditionally not been included in communities. There are moments when I'm really proud of our community, and I can think of a lot of them happened raising flags. The first time we raised the trans flag was a really powerful day in the community. I agree that it's unacceptable for anyone to receive messages of hate. There are other members around this horseshoe that have received those messages online. There are members of my family that have received those messages related to this. I'm sure there's members in this room that were brave enough to speak on this motion in support of groups like Pride and Black Lives Matter. And I think it's important that we reject those statements. And I think that we have a responsibility as municipal leaders to create and promote an inclusive community. And that word inclusive means something very specific. So inclusivity does not mean that you accept things like misogyny or homophobia or transphobia or anti-Black racism or anti-Indigenous racism. Accepting those viewpoints, providing platforms.
Sorry, folks, something happened to the audio, but I'm sure he'll be back. Just give it a moment.
Is not something that you can espouse and a stance you can take in important issues where people have their safety at risk. And I think that when we make decisions like this, it would be easy to not say something, to let it go by, to take an easy approach, to just not have to deal with it. That's not why I ran for council. I don't think that's why anyone around here ran for council. And when I think of the people in this community that find these symbols important, I will support them in any way that I can. I will vote against this motion. I will vote for the motion that Councillor Crew brings. And I just want to say I'm very proud of many members of this community and the way that they've handled this issue. And I want them to know that you belong here. Thank you.
Councillor Anderson, followed by Councillor Finn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Everything that I would say has been said. Thank you.
Councillor Finn, followed by Councillor C. McGregor.
Thank you, Worship. Wasn't going to speak on this one. I like the amendment that it comes back to council. I support every organization that has done a flag raising. I have family that have been involved with the organizations. I myself have been involved with it. Prior to 2004, I didn't even know Right to Life existed. I think a lot of people need to look at Right to Life or pro-life because there's a big misunderstanding as to what they do for this community. They support people in this community. I know firsthand because I walked through those doors in 2004, a single mom expecting twins. Had it not been for them, and they did not tell me I should go through this pregnancy, I needed to go through this. They did not push their views onto me. But had it not been for them, I wouldn't have had clothing. I wouldn't have had diapers. I wouldn't have had formula. They gave me coupons if I needed them. I was a single mom. I had a good job, but I had 4 kids now. I was not prepared for 2 because I found out at 23 weeks. So I think it's great, but we need to include them as well. And it hurt when I found out they were not even responded to. So I can understand why the motion came forward. I like council voting on it, maybe not, because there are organizations that already have their flag raisings already planned. I'd like to put a friendly amendment that it does come to council, that any that have been already approved, still approved, but maybe twice a year. If you're going to do a flag raising between January and June, have them apply in December, have it come before the flag raising even starts in January. The same with between July and December. Have them come in June where it's voted on, because some administration may not realize what an organization does. And I know hundreds and thousands of young moms and dads that have benefited from that program. So if I could make a friendly amendment that they do fly the other flags, but that it does get approved by council, and if already pre-approved, that they're allowed to go forward.
Councillor Jubenville, is that a friendly amendment?
Yes, it is.
Councillor Bondi? So how do we want this worded?
I do think we're getting a little too far down into the, like, the main policy is to only fly the 3 flags. Councillor Bondi's amendment would say that there can be exceptions, but it has to come to council for approval. Councillor Finn, I think what you're doing is just, it's expanding a little bit out of the scope of Councillor Jubenville's motion.
Yeah,
so if this motion passes as amended, we're going to have to, although I appreciate that this is the policy, we're still going to have a procedure in place, right? People are going to call us, and in many cases, we don't have a lot of notice, and that's, I'm sure, happening in the mayor's office now, where we find out that next week is dig safely week or something like that. So we will have to have some sort of a procedure so that it does come to council. We generally, as administration, try not to bring too many things to you. I don't know if holus bolus is a word. I don't know if it's Latin, but hopefully I'll know what I mean by that. We try not to bring the same things over and over. So I fully expect that there would be a procedure in place so that we're not receiving these every week and then having to do a council report on it. I think the idea of having them come in, whether it's 2-3 times a year, something like that, is the only way we're going to be able to process that. And I'd rather have one council report dealing with the 3, 4, 5 requests that we might get. So I guess what I'm saying is, could you leave at least the procedure part to the staff, keeping in mind that we don't want to be doing this every council meeting and that we need notice so that you guys can do whatever stakeholder consultations you do to discharge your obligations. But we hear you. If this passes, there needs to be a procedure to support it, which is consistent with everything else we do. We try to lump things together, like planning reports, that sort of thing. So I anticipate we do exactly the same thing.
So, Councillor Finn, given the discussion, because I believe if we add that amendment, we're starting to get a lot closer to what we are doing right now, other than saying council has the say in what goes up and what doesn't.
If it could be that council direct administration as a friendly amendment to make a policy, whereas applications will be received and brought forth to council instead of having where stating the only flags.
I did have this same conversation with Councillor Bondi earlier today, who emailed me about a similar amendment, and it does start to get contrary to Councillor Jubenville's motion. She said these 3 flags and only these 3 flags. So if we start adding all these exceptions on, it starts to become contrary.
If she accepts the fact that we could remove by stating the only flags that shall be flown as a friendly amendment, to remove that part, would that be a friendly amendment?
That changes the motion.
Oh, okay.
So in my opinion, the amendment you're trying to put forward is contrary to Councillor Jubenville's motion and would not be accepted.
Okay, so we've got, I'm going, sorry, Councillor C. McGregor.
Thank you, and through the mayor. I also want to thank all of people that reached out and the emails that came through. It is very passionate issue within our communities, and to all of our groups and within our community that celebrate by starting their celebrations with a flag raising within the municipality. I think where we're getting to right now, I think we're all kind of on the same page here at the table, but I think at this point it might be just cleaner if this fails and then Councillor Cruz's motion comes back. That would allow administration to come up with the proper policy. There's some really good ones out there, like Ottawa and other things that some of our speakers have pointed out. But at that point in time, it also gives council the opportunity, if they want it to come back to council or things to come back to council, then that motion could be amended with the direction that a proper policy be set within the policy or within the municipality. The other part that concerns me if this goes through, in our community, we're due to be at a flag raising in another week. So what happens to that flag raising in another week? There isn't time to come back to council and ask to have a flag risen. So, I'm sure there's other flags that are due to be risen in the very, very near future that would not have the opportunity to come back and get proper approval by council. So, I think the intent's there. I understand Councillor Jubenville's intent, and it's very good. It's about equality. It's about giving everybody the right to be able to celebrate without discrimination from any sector of any group. So I just think at this point it would be much cleaner if this failed, or even if it was pulled, and that a motion come back that I know is intended that would set proper policy for the municipality, and at that point, councillors will be able to decide if that's the proper policy or if there needs to be more council action within that selection at that point. So, thank you.
I guess so. I'm not against any of these flags that need to be risen. I think they all need to be risen. Again, I guess that unless they're against hate or promote violence or that kind of type of thing. But correct me if I'm wrong, but would your motion, we would still approve the bylaw for the flags, but that would still put all of that in administration's hand to basically do everything, and we never vote on a flag again. So your motion would put all this back in the hands of administration, where Bondi's lets council vote on it. And I guess in my opinion, like you said, we're paid to make votes. I've made a lot of votes already that I did not want to make or do anything about. So if we were elected to make decisions, tough decisions like this, I think I am full support of this motion right there, that we're not going to deny all flags. We'll allow the flags, and as long as a councillor brings it to the table, then we vote on it. So that makes perfect sense to me. And then we still fly the flags.
So just my observation on this is as we go down, we're moving more towards inclusion of other flags subject to council. I really see the key component here is council wants ultimate determination of what goes up the flagpole. And that's what I'm hearing generally speaking. And we're trying to draft almost a policy on the, as we go through your amendments, Councillor Finn wanted to add that and saying, well, yeah, but it's starting to look like a lot like a policy. I mean, the thought would be, is administration develop a policy knowing that council wants ultimate approval on this, and whether it's something to say here, these 30 are that we've done that nobody has, whatever it might be, but have a policy that we can look at and factor in everything that we've been hearing. That's because otherwise we're going to get some sort of policy based on this and this, and adding different things in, and then we're going to say, well, hang on here, what are the procedures? A policy coming back would be a lot more inclusive of the A to Z of how this happens. And as well, it can also, council can say, no, we want to approve every single flag that goes up there in the policy, and that's fine. But this then, by adding, like Councillor Finn was saying, well, no, but we'll put certain ones in here, we'll do this. So that's what I'm just trying to summarize the discussion as we've been hearing it to this point. So with this, I've got, I see no other questions, so I'll go to the mover and seconder for final comments. Councillor Jubenville, do you want to go first?
There's concern of flag raisings that are already on the schedule. So that would be a concern. Could we grandfather anything that is on the schedule that's already been, yes, like right now, if there's a flag raising on the schedule, let's leave it on the schedule. If there's already been a request put through and it's been granted by the mayor's office. And then beyond that, everything would fall under that motion there on the screen.
So you're looking at adding in grandfathering
existing requests.
Existing requests
That have already been approved.
Okay. Just that, there's a lot of them that would consider perpetuity to say, we've done it for 20 years now. Right. Is that grandfathering? Right. So we're going to get into that. I'm just trying to imagine the discussion that's going to happen there by putting that in grandfathering. Well, we're grandfathered.
Yeah.
Sorry, Councilor McGrail, I did notice, sorry, I should have went to you because you did have your hand up earlier. I apologize.
I'm confused now completely because would that not supersede the original motion, grandfathering? So that's where, because we have a motion, right? And I'm trying to understand this, right? We have a motion, and now we're amending the motion that it's not even the motion anymore. So is there not a point of order here or something? Because it's gotten... And that's what I'm trying to get at.
We're basically drafting a policy as we move going through here, and we're doing it in 20 minutes. It is the discussion point. Okay, so, sorry,
I'm
can
so
only go to the people.
confused.
Well, yeah, I can only go back to once. So based on that, so anything else you'd like to say? Okay, Councillor Bondi.
Great, thank you, Mayor Kim. So the next council meeting is May 8th. So any flag raising that's scheduled between now and May 8th, and this doesn't have to be part of a motion, we can just say it and agree on it, right? We don't have to put it in writing. Anything between now and May 8th would go ahead as scheduled. Anything beyond that, no, would need council approval. And if the flag's gone up for 25 years, year after year, it still needs council approval. This isn't meant to be terribly easy. I think what I'm trying to accomplish is that council controls it and council makes a decision. So when I hear, Councillor B. McGregor say, it's very important that this flag, well, that flag may go up. Like, nobody's excluding any flag. It's just saying we're going to fly these three governmental flags unless there's a move by council to raise a flag. So council will make that decision. And if Councillor McGregor wants to bring National Cupcake Day flag and, make a motion to bring that up, I don't think it'll pass, but he'd have that ability. But nobody's going to do silly things like that because we're not going to waste council's time. So I think this is fine. That can be the policy. And we've all had the opportunity to read Councillor Cruz's motion if this fails. And it's rather similar, but it says administration will handle it and take care of it. And then in 2 years from now, council will have forgotten all about it. And we will be where we are today, where I drive by and see a flag that went up. I don't even know what the flag means sometimes. And that's what we're trying to kind of control. So I think that's it for me. Thanks.
Okay, given that, that's the final word on this. And that
point of order, it's been amended 4 times since I've spoken.
Well, no, so the only amendment is that any exception to the flag raising policy be the sole decision of council.
And then,
we haven't added anything else to it. It's only that.
Okay.
We'll put it to vote now.
All votes are in and the motion is defeated 12-5.
Councillor Crew.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Bear with me because my screen's not that big. Whereas flags are a recognized symbol of nations, territories, community organizations, and civic pride, and whereas community flag raisings enhance public awareness of activities important to Chatham-Kent residents, and whereas flying flags at half-mast denote official
They're still
periods
dealing with
of
it,
mourning,
Mouth.
and whereas there is no
The original
Chatham-Kent
motion
policy,
defeated. They're on to
protocol,
the
or
amended
guidelines
motion, I
that
believe.
provide consistent and fair practices. Therefore, be it resolved that administration develop a policy and protocol to provide clear direction and an administrative framework for the proper and consistent use of flags and flagpoles at all municipal facilities. And this includes community flag raisings, honoring Chatham-Kent's diversity and important community events to ensure that they occur in a fair, orderly, and consistent manner. And consultation for this policy include community groups who have displayed flags, those who have expressed interest in displaying flags, and input from the Diversity, Inclusion, Equity, and Justice Committee, and as well review what other communities have in place, and that this draft policy be returned to Council September 2023 for voting. I so move. If I get a seconder, I have just a couple
Councillor
comments.
B. McGregor.
I will emphatically second that motion.
Thank you. I understand the intent around Councillor Jubenville's motion, and I understand when community groups are excluded. If that was someone that I was passionate about, I definitely would have done probably the same thing. I've been known to be a little passionate about things, and then I assume and feel my opinion is the correct one, but we all have passionate passions about groups and organizations and causes and different things in our community. And to cut off one or the other is not fair or democratic. And I wouldn't want to live in a society that just thought I was right all the time, which I am pretty much. But so I'm hoping that staff will come back with something that's fair, consistent, and recognizes all groups except for groups that are involved in hate and any of those other things that don't support the values in Chatham-Kent. When I read Violet's little message, it really said, you know, this is what we're about and this is what we need in our community. So I think that it's fair to take this out of the hands of the mayor's office or even around the council table, because it's not fair to put all the decisions, when they're controversial, on one group or one group of people within our organization without the guidelines and clear, consistent practices for all of us to follow in Chatham-Kent. We are not the only building in Chatham-Kent, and we're not the most important, although we'd like to think so. I received a phone call from folks at the Wish Center today. We're municipal, so we can't put our flagpole up that we've been talking about to fly a flag for Black history, right? So like these things matter to our community and they're important. And I think that I can't say it any better than Councillor McGregor said earlier about inclusivity and what our community stands for. So I hope that you'll support this. It's asking for a policy to come back, and we still get to vote on this policy. If we don't like it, change it, add things, whatever. But I know that staff will engage the community as we've asked, and perhaps engage the community on Let's Talk CK, whoever's in charge of doing this. So thank you. I've rambled enough. That's all I have to say. I hope that you'll support this.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
And this will pass.
All votes are in and motion passes 14-3.
So it goes back to administration. They'll review everything. They'll come up with a
reports,
draft
Councillor
policy.
Crew, and I'll get Councillor McGrail to second them.
And hang on a second here. Let me take a brief break. I'll come back and we'll just comment on this. Don't go away.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
And that is how politics works in the real world. You start with something that has some substance to it. It ends up in front of, in this case, local council, or it could be parliament. It's discussed, it's amended, it's watered down, it's shifted, it's molded, remolded, rejigged, transformed, and then rejected in favor of something else where it goes back to administration. And what's going to happen here? The motion that passed basically kicks it back to the administration, which is the bureaucrats who work at City Hall, who really run things over there, even more so than the councilors do. And they'll take a look at everything now, and they'll develop a new draft policy for raising flags in front of municipal and government buildings around town. And then they'll bring it back to council in September, and then they'll re-examine it again, and they'll have this whole discussion one more time, and they may amend it again. They may approve it. If they reject it, it might be re-amended. It might go back to administration. We don't know what will happen in September, and it keeps going around and around in a circle. And it's a very, very difficult thing, because what we were trying to do here today really was take the politics out of politics. I understand, and I supported Rhonda's motion. I think it was a justified thing to suggest that we stop raising flags like this in front of government buildings. Because why? Because they were rejecting some of the community groups. They were saying, you guys are okay, but you guys aren't. That's really why. It was because of the exclusive nature of the decision-making process. It wasn't inclusive at all. Now, maybe this, because it calls on a change in the procedure so that it puts it in front of council, so council will actually end up making the decisions instead of just an arbitrary decision coming from the mayor's office through the mayor's office from administration, saying this one's okay, that one's not okay, and it's not actually something that is decided by the representatives of the community, therefore not really by the people. It was being left in the hands of the administrators, which in the case of, if you really want to look at this or compare it from this micro level to the macro level, those guys would be the local deep state. The administrators, right? So you're leaving it in the hands of the local deep state to make the decision on who gets to fly their flag. And because it's a conspiracy, it's because the deep staters are saying yes to these guys and no to those guys. And it absolutely is political. Of course it's political. It's government. Everything about government is political. But how do you take the politics out of politics? You can't. And then Rhonda, in her submissions, was actually even sitting there saying, well, instead of having these flags flying in front of municipal or government buildings, why don't we should have like just a separate flagpole someplace? Maybe in a park, a community flagpole, and they could fly them over there. But it's the same thing in the end, because now what's really been going on in this conversation is everybody is trying to make everybody happy. You're starting from a place of like, let's just stop doing this altogether because nobody's happy, or at least half the people are happy and half the people are unhappy. So let's make a new thing over here. But that would just have ended up being the same problem. It's still like, who gets to fly it over in the park? Who makes that decision? Well, you either have to have that come back to council or the administration, or you need to set up some sort of a community committee that would make these decisions. And as those decisions are being made, you're still going to snub somebody, because at some point somebody's going to get a no. And as soon as you get a no, you're going to get people unhappy, and then you might get protesters out there. And this whole thing keeps going around and around in circles. And I don't know what the answer is other than tolerance. Tolerance. People have to start to tolerate each other. Just accept that some people are different than you are. Some people are different than I am. I just have to accept that. And I may not agree with what somebody else says, and I have to accept that. Doesn't mean I have to endorse it. Doesn't mean I have to promote it. Doesn't mean that I have to do anything other than be tolerant. Live and let live. That is the answer. It honestly always has been. We need to remember that. That's my opinion. And you maybe don't agree with that. See, and I think it was Councillor McGregor, his name is, here, the local councillor. He's saying, we have to have inclusivity, but that doesn't mean that we accept people who are misogynistic or any of these other things. Well, how do you define misogyny? How do you define hate? How do you define some of these things? That is also part of where the problem is, because that is the intolerance of intolerance is intolerance. Because if you're talking about religion, there are certain rules that Christians follow. There are certain rules that Muslims follow. There are certain rules with every religion that people of that faith have to follow in order to adhere to their belief system, to their religion. Because some things are viewed as an absolute sin. We can't tolerate homophobia. Yeah, but this religion over here says that a gay lifestyle is a sin. So yes, you do need to tolerate some degree of intolerance. That's part of what being tolerant is. You have to respect that some people don't believe in something because they believe that it's a sin. And if they engage in that, they're going to go straight to hell. Or if they even endorse it, or if they're part of it, they're going to go straight to hell. That's why Rhonda got that donation made in her name to the Satanic Temple. These people know that. And that was the most hateful thing I've seen in a long time. And that was wrong. That was intolerant. That was gross. Because if you're a person of faith, if you're a Christian, if somebody does that in your name, you see that as an existential threat to your soul. And the person that did that, and the people at the Satanic Temple for doing something like that, that's mockery. And it's disgusting. And that's what we witnessed here tonight. And look at Rhonda. Does she seem like a hateful person to you? No. Not at all. What she was saying is some people in this community are actually being excluded. That's what this was really about at the heart of it. They're saying some Christians are feeling excluded and some other community groups that are being shunned by the administrators. It's not reflective of the community. Not really. Or is it? These values that I adhere to, these community standards that I thought were in place, not necessarily so, not across the board. That to me is disturbing. The intolerance that is out there today is honestly off the charts when you get outside of the center, because everything is polarized. Not just politically, but morally. I don't know how you resolve all this, folks. Things have just gotten worse, and they continue to deteriorate. We have moral decay. And what is morality? What is moral? What is right? What is wrong? All of that is questionable these days, malleable. That is part of the problem. Because if you're a satanic devil worshiper, your view of what's right and wrong is diametrically opposed to what someone who worships God is. And it appears to me like we have actual devil worshipers among us. I'm not surprised. I know they're out there. At Christmas, we did a whole show about satanic symbols, Satanism, Baal, Satanism in the way that it's being used in advertising, in our culture, in our movies, in our television shows, in our music, and the way it was used today to literally strike fear into the heart of a member of municipal council in my community. You could, I suppose, argue that if someone Christian prays for someone who's a devil worshiper, maybe it's the same thing. Everything is so twisted today. What's right? What's wrong? Suddenly everything's in question. What is a man? What is a woman? How many genders are there? We just had the caller who says there are only 3. But then some people want to undergo medical operations. And it's all about the kids, right? Both sides say they're trying to save the kids. And it's just going around and around in circles. And oh my goodness, I don't even like to talk about this stuff. And it's just getting worse every day. And the division, the hatred, the anger, the fighting. I'm still saying that all this stuff, we're all being manipulated. Somebody wants us all fighting. Good job. It's working. And after all of this, no solution. And I think maybe that's the message that is going out across the land tonight, across Canada, across the US, maybe even around the world, from my little town, Chatham-Kent, Ontario, Canada. What's the message? Brace yourself. There's more chaos coming. And I think for the powers that be, that's just the way they want it. Folks, it is 9:40 p.m. on this 24th day of April 2023. I appreciate everybody spending your time here tonight. We're going to wrap things up. Don't forget that you can donate to support this channel at freedomreporters.com. Please, if you haven't liked on YouTube, we're trying to salvage the channel, rejuvenate it. Please subscribe. If you haven't, please hit the notification bell if you do subscribe on YouTube. And please consider subscribing over on Rumble. We continue to grow over there. We're going to be doing more exclusive content over there. And I am developing strategies to combat the demonetization that we've just gone through here with YouTube and the suppression that we continue to experience. And in spite of it all, we continue to grow across other platforms, and we still have a strong community here, even on YouTube. And that's because of you guys. Like I said before, this show isn't about me, it's about us. And we do have an actual family here, a real community here on the Maverick News Channel. You guys are all Mavericks. Just by watching, by calling in, by participating, you are helping to preserve and promote free media, freedom of speech. I'll be back tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, on the flip side. Thank you.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.